तो सर आपकी अनुमति से आई थिंक 10:30 हो चुका है, हम प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत करते हैं।
बिल्कुल करें।
दैट्स वेरी गुड। डिजास्टर प्रिपेयर्डनेस में टाइम की बहुत इंपॉर्टेंस है।
जी 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 अनिल सर।
यस जी
जी thank you. Very warm good morning to all of you present here and for this joint 3-day eFDP come training program on disaster risk reduction and disaster management organized by jointly by National Institute of Disaster Management and Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University, Lucknow. This is 21st century. We are living in multi-hazard times. If I can quote this pandemics that we are running through this phase 2, an unprecedented second wave of pandemic has struck our Indian states this year, giving very less time for preparation, resulting into number of positive cases reaching to the heights of 4+ lakhs cases on daily basis continuously, and more than 4,000 plus deaths on daily basis. Then fresh mutants and versions of virus, as well as it being airborne this time and spreading capacity, coupled with newfound black fungus disease associated with this pandemic this time, has made a large section of our society vulnerable to this pandemic. And we have observed mass scale scarcity of essential drugs, oxygen supply, hospital beds, ventilators, ICUs, vaccination, etc. in the last couple of months. We have also observed black marketing, hoarding, social unrest, misbehavior with healthcare professionals, COVID warriors, then floating dead bodies in the rivers, mass cremations, degradation of social values, to name a few. Some of the unwanted and unimagined situations and scenarios the country is witnessing these days. On the other hand, the other kind of disaster, if we can quote, a very severe cyclonic storm, Tauktai, loomed over the East Central Arabian Sea and affected Kerala, Goa, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat coastal areas, where at some of the places the wind speed reached up to the point 180 kilometers per hour. And recently, this Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology have warned that the Arabian Sea is fast becoming a cyclone hotbed. Normally, we see more cyclones in the Bay of Bengal because sea surface temperature there is above 28 degrees normally, while in Arabian Sea it is 1 or 2 degrees less always. But due to climate change, Arabian Sea is observing getting warmer over the past century, and based on the data from 1965 to 2020, number of cyclonic events are increasing in the Arabian Sea area as well. So phase 2 of this National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project for Goa, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Karnataka that started in 2015 and was scheduled to finish in 2020. We have observed that early warning systems and cyclone shelters there at many places in the Arabian side of our country are yet to be completed. So next to floods, we know that cyclones are the major cause for disaster mortalities. The only way to limit such casualties is to understand climate science warnings and be cyclone ready. There is no other option. So simply put together, when a plethora of disasters strike a geographical place at same point of time with such enormity, no government machinery in the world can deal with such situations all alone. So need of the hour is efficient implementation of disaster management policies at the ground level, involvement of all the stakeholders in this common fight of ours, work together in synergy without falling prey to panic states of mind, and try to also utilize the available assets and facilities, resources that we are having with us optimally. At the same time, we have to find a fine balance between protection, conservation, and improvement of our environment, with keeping pace with required development of the economy and the infrastructure. Only last week, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change have allowed companies in several industries to expand capacity based on a self-certification that their operations will not increase the pollution load. This is in line with the amendments in the environment assessment that EIA notification 2006 that was improved upon. Amendments were made into that in 2016 and 20, which introduced the provision of no pollution load and exemption from seeing environmental clearance if the resultant increase of production capacity was less than 50%. Economic growth on one hand is a key national imperative, but it will not be able to sustain high growth by using shortcuts. The economy and the environment we can say that definitely we cannot stop natural disasters, but we can arm ourselves with knowledge so many lives would not have to be lost if there was enough disaster preparedness. Also, in our developmental processes, if it is not risk informed, it is not sustainable, and if it is not sustainable, it has a huge human cost. So reducing economic losses from disasters has the power to transform lives. So last but not the least, the environment and the economy are really both two sides of the same coin. If we cannot control and sustain the environment, we cannot sustain ourselves. Having said that, in the light of the unprecedented times that we find ourselves in, National Institute of Disaster Management and SRMU Lucknow have made an attempt to bring this eFDP training program before you, which will try to touch upon important facets and aspects of why DRR is necessary and why this is an integral part of disaster risk management whole process. So this is our first program together after we have recently signed an MOU together, and I'm confident that this program is going to enlighten all of us with regard to DRR and DM. I welcome all the esteemed guests, speakers, and delegate participants for this three-day entire program. And Dr. Anushri Singh, Associate Professor, SRMU Lucknow, has been very kind enough to accept our request on behalf of both NIDM and SRMU to moderate the whole program for entire 3 days. My special thanks to her. May I now request upon her to kindly take it over from here and run the show to begin with the inaugural session of this program. Dr. Anushri.
Thank you so much, sir. Good morning to all. Preparation through education is less costly than learning through tragedy. With this inspiring quote, I take this opportunity to start the event. It's an honor itself to honor this beautiful audience who has gathered here virtually. I, Dr. Anushri Singh, welcome you all on behalf of Institute of Management, Commerce and Economics, Sri Ram Sarup Memorial University in 3-day eFDP training program on disaster risk reduction and disaster management, jointly organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Delhi, and Sri Ram Sarup Memorial University, Barabanki. Before the launch, let me first acknowledge the presence of some of our eminent personalities. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Dr. A.K. Singh, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Dr. Ajay Prakash, Sir, respected Professor Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta, Sir, HOD, ECDRM, NIDM, and Shri Ashish Kumar Panda, Consultant and Faculty Member, NIDM Delhi, and all the directors, deans, and other eminent personalities. The novel coronavirus crisis has significantly redefined the humanitarian emergency paradigm and changed our understanding of disaster management in several ways. With the nature of disasters changing constantly, they can surprise us by their unpredictability and speed of onset. Despite our access to the most advanced and sophisticated information and early warning systems. So we cannot stop natural disasters, but we can arm ourselves with knowledge. So many lives wouldn't have to be lost if there was enough disaster preparedness. With this, we will have our traditional auspicious lamp lighting ceremony in digital mode, followed by Saraswati Vandana as a tribute to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge and art.
नमस्कार नमस्कार कैसे हैं
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
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 I think
Anushri, audio is not coming.
please take the audio, Anushri.
Good morning, madam.
Yesterday, Leah has been lit already there.
Hello. Hello.
If there is still technical issue, just move forward, Dr. Anushri.
Yes, we can go through.
Then maybe mic is speaker is there, voice is not there.
अमित जी,
If there is any problem,
इंटरनेट कनेक्टिविटी का इशू होगा.
Maybe some technical.
शुक्रवस्त्रामृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा.
I mean, your voice is not there.
Mama, you're not audible.
Am I audible now, sir?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
yes.
And now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta ji, HOD, ECDRM, and IDM for welcome address. Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, HOD, ECDRM, and IDM is a disaster mitigation and crisis management professional. Professor Gupta possesses interdisciplinary expertise with institutional development, has coordinated several international and national projects, has published over 100 academic publications. He also served NMDC, DMI, NERI, and SICON in administrative and technical capacities. He is coordinator of Technical Advisory Committee of NIDM, member of Governing Council and Academic and Research Advisory of several institutions, and high-level ministerial delegation abroad. Formerly, Head Director, Institute of Environment and Development Studies, Bundelkhand University, Jhansi, since 2003. He joined NIDM in 2006. Please, sir, over to you.
Very good morning to all the dignitaries here and all the speakers and all the participants of this 3 days very important training program, online training program. I am very happy that the SRM University has taken the following steps. As the National Institute of Disaster Management and SRM University, we have also come up under a memorandum of
यार
understanding.
आवाज थोड़ी धीरे आ रही है, यहाँ तो वही मुझे है ना, आवाज थोड़ी धीरे आ रही है. मैं उसको हूँ ना, ब्लूटूथ पे हूँ ना मैं.
Please,
Could you please mute others? Anil sir, please.
हाँ, मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
जी sir, जी sir.
जी, thank you. So This is a very important topic, and I must compliment the Vice Chancellor, Pro Vice Chancellor, Dean, all the senior professors from SRM University, and the team from NIDM for taking up this subject. As today, when we are discussing about disaster management and disaster risk reduction, past 3 days, our television channel is showing a major disaster that a country is facing. Although, in fact, it is more than a year we are in a disaster. This COVID pandemic and the second wave. So that is also a different kind of disaster. And we have in fact termed COVID pandemic as a complex emergency because it was a disaster in itself, but during that period, we had to face a number of other disasters. And the current cyclone has been in the level of a super cyclone as per the wind speed that it achieved, the kind of devastations that it has given. And there is a new understanding also, because these kind of devastating cyclones usually were very rare in the west coast side or Gujarat coast, but more frequently on the east coast side like Orissa. And many times these kind of challenges also determine our preparedness and seriousness about risk management. That is the reason when these kind of disasters or cyclones, when they come in the Orissa coast, we find that we are more prepared. Our infrastructure systems, our community level preparedness, our preparedness in government, our stockpiling of necessary things are relatively better because we often, very rarely, very frequently, we have been facing this kind of disasters. But the changing frequency, intensity, and geographical extent of these kind of disasters are giving us new lessons. Why I am referring to this particular example? Because if we analyze past 10-15 years major disasters, we find that our most focus remains on major disasters or catastrophic events. And when we face these kind of disasters, we realize that some or other way our preparedness has been inadequate in some or other dimensions. So what it requires? It requires some kind of a out of box thinking. Traditionally, we have been talking of a disaster management cycle that we start from prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery, then again coming to that cycle. Now we are talking of a disaster management continuum that we say that disaster management should not end into disasters. Basically, it should end into
Please unmute.
You are muted, sir. So please unmute.
Scientific term, we say that lower order risks. I think that is very important because the safety has to be brought into the minds and safety has to be brought into our culture. And unless we bring the safety into our culture, we will continue facing the challenges of disasters. Yes, whenever there is a disaster, the top priority is to save the life of the people, provide them relief. So certainly humanitarian actions are inevitable and we have to do that. So this new paradigm is now talking about looking to lower order risks or safety in general also. Because if we look at the kind of challenges that we face, many times misadventures, many times ignoring the warnings. And why we ignore the warnings? Because safety is not in our mind. We do not give safety a priority in our life. And many times, despite of effective early warning, despite of effective projections, we fail to safeguard the life of the people. So I think these are the new lessons. There are simpler things And I think the old saying that the charity begins at home, I think this applies in disaster management also. So I sometimes question that many times we talk of tsunami, we talk of nuclear bomb explosion, we talk of very, very big things, but the smaller things we don't discuss. Had we ever seen the requirements of our hospitals, the adequacy of resources in terms of manpower, in terms of resources, in terms of oxygen, ventilator, and all that, the normal patient load in the hospitals, we could have not faced this situation that we face in the pandemic also. So that is a basic learning. How many schools and hospitals have a functional first aid kit? How many of us are really knowing CPR? How many of us have really looked at our own home, our house, or our office room to see its dangers? What is the condition of electric circuits around us? How many of us have really looked at it? How many of us have really experienced that our foot slipped on the stairs and we could save us some other way, or some of our colleague fell down, or some of our student fell down from the stairs? So if we can break our leg just by slippage on a stair, how can we say that we will safeguard ourselves from tsunami? This is a fundamental question. So I think we have to think that the safety has to be brought into our minds. It should be into our behavior. That is the first thing. Many times we discuss about Japan, that yes, it is very good in technology. We keep on crying and trying and so many things, speaking loud things about technology. Why Japan don't discuss too much about technology? They have achieved technology. Now their focus is more on behavioral and community-based interventions. We seldom notice that their behavioral trainings, their understanding about safety has been equally important. And that has actually helped them achieve a better success. In the COVID pandemic also, we just see that how they have managed this. So I think there is a good lesson. There is a very good lesson. And there is a very good lesson that how the discipline can also contribute to that. So this is a new paradigm. And I would say that we start looking at the three things around us: health, safety, and environment. Now, this 5th June onwards, we are going to have 10 decades, the UN decade on ecosystem restoration. Because in 2019, when we hosted in India, New Delhi hosted the 14th Conference of Parties of United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification. And all the countries resolved together that we will start releasing back to nature. See, now everyone wants to grab land. Everyone wants more and more land. I have a one bedroom flat, then I want 2 bedroom, then 3 bedroom, 5 bedroom, and then I want 3 houses. Then I want a big yard, and I want a farmhouse, and so many things. But on the other hand, scientists and policymakers together decided that no, we will release land back to nature. I think that is a very difficult kind of thing. But if we have agreed, if we have told, it means we will have to think. We will have to think that how we are going to release land back to nature. अभी तो हम लैंड और चाहिए, कैसे लैंड को वापस हम छोड़ सकते हैं? तो वो सोचने की बात है. And I think for this, we'll have to start that how we improve the ecosystem services around us, how we improve the safety culture, how we improve the health around us. I think this pandemic, second wave, the most trouble was related with oxygen. And as yet, research is not complete, but I guess that general lung conditions in India is poor, particularly in urban India. The lung functions are much relatively poorer in urban India, in our cities, in our towns. So we already had the people in a vulnerable situation. We already had our immunity is weak. And that has contributed to aggravating the situation. So we all will need to learn. Then the last point, again in the same way, same direction. Some of you, Avdesh is here. He is a scholar of civil engineering. Many other faculty members are also there from civil engineering. When we talk of buildings, we also talk of building health. And we rarely discuss in our civil engineering, in our health sciences, in our disaster management, in our safety systems, we rarely discuss about building health. We talked of a structural strength. हम बोलते हैं कि ठीक है बीम होना चाहिए, कॉलम होना चाहिए, ये होना चाहिए. But what about building health? Because there is a syndrome called sick building syndrome. And many times, even if there is no disaster, living in a particular house or working in a particular room in the office, you start feeling that you are getting sick. And your immunity goes down. Why it is so? So I think there are new dimensions to look into disaster management and disaster risk reduction. And just to inform you that India has already developed a bill called Health, Safety and Environment at the Workplace Bill 2020. And maybe this year, in the coming parliament session, it will be passed and it will become an act. So we are going to look at what is the difference between developed countries and us. Basically, we are in our country, we are also quite hardworking. Even more hardworking. Even we put in more efforts. But the working conditions are sometimes lesser equipped, or the conditions are not that good at those have been given much emphasis in the European countries and America and other countries. So I think this is again a very important aspect, that how we bring a safety culture and how we bring safety culture in our mind. In fact, we will have to relook the entire discourse of development, the fast pace of development. I think we will have to sometimes stand and stare. I think sometimes we have to stop for some moment, and we have to relook and revisit our own journey. We will have to revisit what really we want, whether we want a good quality life or we just want a standard of living. So I think that will give very important message, that if we really want good quality of living, good quality of life, I think safety should be given one of the best priority, and health should be at the foremost agenda. And then when we revisit all kind of things, I think disaster management and disaster risk reduction is also then going to have a next level paradigm that I have called as the second generation paradigm, because past 10 years have been full of experiences. We had a number of variety of disasters that we faced in India, and each one has given a lot of lessons, that if we do not take care of ecosystems, if we do not take care of our correct pace of development, if we do not take care of our urban systems, we will continue to have these kind of disasters. So I think this lesson should be learned, and I hope that this 3 days program is going to be really a wonderful experience for all of us and all the participants. So I express my gratitude to all the dignitaries, all my colleagues, professors from the SRM University, from NIDM, all the colleague speakers of this program, and all the participants. Many of the participants are the faculty members, and certainly they are going to transfer this knowledge of the 3 days deliberation to many of the students and their colleagues. And I think that is the greatest advantage of this kind of program. So thank you very much, and my best wishes for the successful conduct of this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us about the preparedness and risk reduction of disaster management, and letting us know the importance of creating health infrastructure and giving importance to safety and welfare of all humankind. Now, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Ajay Prakash, Pro VC, Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University, for delivering the inaugural address. Professor Ajay Prakash has more than 38 years of experience in teaching, research, and academic administration. At present, he is working as Pro Vice Chancellor, Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University, Uttar Pradesh, and Director, Institute of Management, Commerce, and Economics of the university. Prior to joining this organization, he superannuated in January 2017 from Institute of Cooperative and Corporate Management Research and Training, Lucknow, a state government established premier institute approved by AICTE and affiliated to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University. He worked there as professor and principal for about 32 years. During July 2006 to June 2011, Dr. Prakash worked as director, IILM Academy of Higher Learning, Lucknow, Galgotia's Business School, Greater Noida, Galgotia's Institute of Management and Technology, Greater Noida, and as professor and HOD, MBA at Galgotia's College of Engineering and Technology, Greater Noida. Earlier, he has also worked in premier research organizations at Sri Ram Center for Industrial Relations and Human Resources, New Delhi, Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi, and Indian Institute of Mass Communication, New Delhi. Professor Prakash has published a book, carried out 23 government-sponsored research projects, including 3 United States Agency for International Development and World Bank projects, guided research scholars, leading to award of PhD degree in management, and published many research papers. He was associated in preparation of draft report of UP State's 9th 5-year plan in rural development training and a proposal on UP Health System Development Project for World Bank funding. He has also conducted more than 300 management development training programs and about 40 recruitment tests for government departments. Professor Prakash has served in various expert committees of AICTE, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University, Baba Saheb Bhimarao Ambedkar University, Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, Lucknow University, member of Academic Council and Board of Studies of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University, Northeastern Hill University, Triple M Engineering College, Gorakhpur, and Uttarakhand Sanskrit University. Is also executive member of Lucknow Management Association. He is lifetime member of premier organizations like Indian Institute of Administration and Indian Institute of Economic Research. He was also a member on the panel of jury in the All India Contest of Smart Investors Season 2, organized by Z Business TV channel and Anand Rathi Group. Sir, please, Professor Ajay Prakash, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anushri. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University, Professor Dr. A.K. Singh ji, Program Chair, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta ji of NIDM, Program Coordinators, Shri Ashish Panda ji from NIDM, Dr. Raj Lakshmi, Dr. Anushri, Dr. Amit Sinha from SRMU, student coordinators, participating faculty members, students, and friends. I feel delighted that National Institute of Disaster Management and Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University jointly organizing a 3-day eFDP training program on one of the most concurrent and burning topic on disaster risk reduction and disaster management. This program is first of its kind, which Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University is organizing after signing an MOU with National Institute of Disaster Management for collaborating such programs aiming at to create and disseminate the body of knowledge in the area of disaster risk reduction and disaster management. This program is also an important part of Prime Minister's 10-point agenda on disaster risk reduction number 1, 4, 5, and 8. I take this opportunity to extend my heartiest congratulations to the entire team of NIDM and SRMU for inviting experts who will enlighten the participants in different fields ranging from engineering, science and technology, media, environment, women, children, psychosocial care, mental health, financial preparedness, etc. The topic of the program is most relevant in today's context. We know disaster has been happening in all ages and all the countries, but it has added more significant since the outbreak of pandemic COVID-19. There is growing concern in the society, administration and government about knowledge, about knowing more about disaster and how to face and overcome it. We know that disasters can be natural or man-made or hybrid in nature. All these disasters damage and destroy physical infrastructure like electricity, houses, power supply, commercial establishments, kill human lives, and severely affect society, particularly dependents of bread earners. But with the advancements of science and technology, forecasting techniques and other body of knowledge has helped in minimizing the losses, particularly of human beings. We have recently seen in the past 1 or 2 days the impact of super cyclone Tauktae, which also severely affected thousands of villages, houses, etc., leading to the damage of hundreds of crores of rupees. But it has impacted very less the human lives. This has happened because of the systematic preparedness over the years by bringing together different relief machineries, agencies, help and support of paramedical, paramilitary, military, government, supply chain management, etc. But a lot more has to be done because every failure or lack of preparedness give opportunity to do more. Sometimes man-made disaster also happen when people violate basic norms, principles and standards, creating imbalance in the society, ignore nature and the natural laws. It can overpollute the atmosphere, environment, natural resources like river, etc. In order to prevent such happening, government enacts laws and the executive should implement. But the failure in implementation, partisan attitude, biasness, lack of transparency lead to more such happenings of disasters. This has to be looked into because there has to be political will and determination to find practical solutions and implementations. While we know systematic preparedness is a long-run process, sometimes government also should be ready to find emergency preparedness. This we have recently seen in the world in general and India in particular. Last year, national lockdown helped India, not only people observing COVID appropriate behavior, but also prepare medical health and infrastructure facilities. But the second wave, which Professor Anil Gupta ji rightly pointed out, did not give government time for systematic preparedness. He mentioned about the oxygen, drugs, medicine, and all that. These all affected young age people and also the children. And therefore, government had to seek more help and support from other countries. And it could materialize because of India's foreign policy and recent government initiatives. I'll also be bringing one point which is very important for all of us to know, that this disaster related issues and disseminating the knowledge is not part of the education program, and therefore from the childhood to the young age, people do not know about these disasters, about the techniques for reducing the risk and how to manage the disaster related issues. I hope that the National Education Policy 2020 has given a scope to the education institutions right from the primary to the higher education, that such body of knowledge should also be made part of the education programs. I'll not be taking much time because we are very keen to listen to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, who had a wide experience of working also in the army, and he knows much more than in this field. But I hope that this program will discuss many important facets of disaster risk reduction and disaster management and enlighten the participants. I wish that the program will be a very successful program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the inaugural speech and letting us know the importance of disaster management, bringing the disaster management into the educational programs of the country. And now I would like to invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir Professor A.K. Singh, for delivering the keynote address. An engineering graduate with management degree and PhD, Colonel A.K. Singh was commissioned into Corps of Engineers, Indian Army in 1976. During his long and illustrious career of 30 years in Indian Army, he took part in several operations, namely the India Peacekeeping Force in 1987, Operation Kargil in 1999, and the massive buildup of the Indian Army during Operation Parakram in 2001 and 2002. For his outstanding services, he was honored twice by the Chief of Army Staff in 1978 and 2001. Besides his combat tenure, he has also served with the military engineering services and border road organizations, where he was involved in planning and execution of both administrative and technical infrastructure for the Indian Army, Indian Air Force, ordnance factories, and liaising with industries. After hanging his uniform, he had a tenure with JP Hydro in a mega hydropower project at Tala, Bhutan. He switched over to consultancy and was associated with an Australian consultancy firm, SMEC. During his tenure as consultant, he was involved in monitoring and implementation of World Bank funded projects of irrigation, PWD, and RES departments in Uttar Pradesh. As part of his assignment of capacity building of engineers, he successfully conducted many workshops in quality management and project management for chief engineers, superintending engineers, executive engineers, and assistant engineers of PWD and RES of Uttar Pradesh. With his rich experience of providing combat engineering and infrastructure support for the Indian Army, exposure to corporate functioning and consultancy, he has been involved right from the inception in the establishment of Sri Ram Sarup Memorial University. His extensive knowledge and experience in consultancy and administration have been instrumental in setting clear-cut attainable objectives for the university as whole and also for the staff, and that have proved a catalyst in steering the university on its set course and buoying it to new heights. Sir, please. Vice Chancellor, sir. Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, please.
I think good morning, everyone. I think, first of all, I'm very thankful that this first conference on disaster risk reduction and disaster management is being organized in collaboration with NITM and our university. I also thankful to the previous speakers, Dr. Ashish and Dr. Professor Gupta, who has given their experience, and I agree with many things. And this is the apt time to, at least, I'm not telling you that disaster should come all the time, but disaster, you can't avoid it. It is going to happen. After all, what is important? It is the human race which is important. And without human race, there is no disaster. So if that happens, how we are going to. Our Pro Vice Chancellor also has spoke about various facets of disaster management and training how we can do. Now, when disaster happens, two things I just want to say. The hazards are happening many times. If you look at the Japanese encephalitis in eastern part of UP, every year it happens. If we don't control the things at the right time and we don't create infrastructure in time, we will not be prevent. And when the capacity of any hazard, becomes beyond the society or the geographical area, they are not able to control, it becomes a disaster. So now this pandemic, I think we have never thought what it is going to, after the Spanish flu, 1914 to 1918, and basically it has started from 17, 18, 19, it goes off again. Most of the people are also thinking about today defeating, when I was doing this mountain warfare course, I was just walking, the instructor has told, and we were training on the ice and the glacier, absolutely hard ice. It's very difficult to even breathe and to climb with the ice axe and the rucksack and the rifle and everything. It's a punishing. He says, ki, just touch it and say, ki, you God save me. Don't try to, man, any natural air, हवा, पानी, इसको आप कभी challenge न करें. Just if they are going to challenge, you're going to have it. So, but the ad thing, they also, when the disaster it happens, when the hazard becomes uncontrollable at the national level, or a state level, or a community level, the disaster is bound to happen. Then the question comes: can we prevent disaster? Yes, there are certain things. One is man-made. I'm not touching about that, but that in natural disaster also it happens. Now, if you look at there are disasters are also what is a one time, and one is recurring. Every year it is happening. Floods are coming every year. The drought is coming everywhere. Fire is happening every day. So unless there are preventive action which we can avoid, and I agree with Dr. Ashish, who has touched upon, Dr. Gupta has touched upon, unless we take action, we are prepared. So a disaster is also like either you prepare or you will perish. So the key, you should be prepared. When first thing first comes, can you avoid it? You have got a blood pressure. If you don't control your weight, if you don't control your walking, you don't do physical exercise, sedentary nature, you're going to have it. But if you walk daily, do some prevent. So this is a preventive action. Every action has got a preventive action or there is a corrective action. Now corrective action is that once it happens, then go to the doctor, he will give a pill. Every day you have to take. You have to take you have a diabetes, you have a high blood pressure. So what I wanted to say is to staying healthy, it avoids a lot of other disasters. As I agree with you, we have seen how the crumbling health infrastructure we have. I'm not saying these are seminars are basically to really criticize ourselves and to suggest something which we should do it. And we should be very honest. It is not, putting a pat on our back, yeah, we are doing very good or very same thing. As a researcher, I feel it is and the participants, I request, please go to critically understand it. Any hazard or anything which is happening, it can turn into a disaster. You see the environment. Everybody is talking about global warming, climate change, and other things. They have signed also that SDG goals are also there. You should be trying to your carbon footprint should be by so and so time it should be reduced. But still, it is happening. I tell you, I think Dr. Ashish or Dr. Gupta has pointed out unsafe. You see how the mindless expansion of buildings and other there. The hillside is cut. deforestation is taking place. So it is every year the landslide happens. It will be more happen. There will be more flooding. And if the more flooding it happens, then glacier will now climate change and this everything. Then that ice will melt, the glacier will melt. There will be flood and flood and flood, and when that melts, there will be no water. So all the littoral estates will be, littoral means along the river coast, they will be first flooded and then they will get dry. So I think we have to look into in around how we can prevent it. When the developed countries are reading almost every year, Western countries spends about $100 billion subsidizing power stations. And what it leads to? Global warming. It also, they subsidize agriculture. And what it is happening, why? Because the agriculture area, they increase the deforestation and forest cover, denuding forest cover. That also again gives to global warming. And all floods and slides happening also happens. There are a fishing, also it disturbs the marine life. Because everything in nature, it is the ecological balance is there. One has to maintain it. So what I want to say, if you take care of our environment, you will be able to mitigate. Means you can avoid to certain extent. I can't say it will be completely stopped, but it can be prevented. Now, when it happens, if the disaster, if at all it happens, how we are going to mitigate it? How we are going to deal with it? Then one should be prepared for it. Are we trained? Are our it's a not level of a national or it is unless it is the level of community, society. If it happens at the Gujarat coast or Maharashtra coast and Kerala coast and Karnataka coast, are these people are trained? Have we got an infrastructure, sir? Yeah, have we got a early warning system? There is a total infrastructure to shift them to a safer houses? So these are also happens. Every year, the hospitals, people are dying because the firefighting arrangement is not there. It is a disaster to understand. It may not fit into that disaster, but it's going to happen. So things which are in and around us, we should be ready. Now, when we say mitigation, any hazard can become a disaster if the society and the social structure is not corresponds and if there is inequality. In any disaster, who are the most people who are affected? 70% people are affected are low income group. 25 to 30, almost 28% is the middle income group. And 18 to 20% is higher income. So they feel the brunt. They are the people who go to the fishing. They are the people who are working. They have got, and then this unsafe building, in the mindless construction, even if it's earthquake, are we following the earthquake? Earthquake also happens, it doesn't give a warning. But what I want to say, but that mitigation and avoidance is there. If you have various zones, zone 1 to zone 5, zone 1 is the safest and zone 6 is the worst. So every year we say there should be, as per zone, there is a clear-cut instruction what measures you will take. Just as civil engineers, Dr. Gupta was telling, they should make sure that it happens. But as a nation, are we responding to that? Everywhere it doesn't happen. So many buildings which are building additional, like when there is a window or another opening, it collapses first. Then multi-storied buildings, there is a limit. There is many things are there, but which can be there. I don't want to touch on that. It itself is a subject where how you can construct and avoid it. There are instructions are already there. More important is all the time I tell ki, unless whatever the policy is there, whatever the instructions are there, unless the people are trained, they understand it, they are sensitized it, we will not be able to do it. So what I always say, ki there is a need for training, there is a need to sensitize the people for all type of disaster. I used to go to flood relief frequently with boats and all as an army service. Many of time, there is nothing, there is no plan at a district level. Now they have started a disaster management plan. So unless district level, community level, you have a plan, ki what type of, say, whatever, first of all, the frequency is to be decided, ki what type of, generally, what is our experience say? Ki what type of disaster is going to happen, or what is the type of hazard it is happening. So will be able to control it. So unless those at a local level has any time at a local level, we carry out certain drills, disaster management. Yeah, bigger disaster. I'm not talking about the nuclear disaster or chemical disaster or a man-made disaster. That you have to be ready. That is a different issue. But at a lower level, it must be there. When I say social structure, socio-economic issues also, how much you spend on health? Has a UN convention or there should be a police station at a particular इतने हजार पे, इतने पे एक प्राइमरी स्कूल होना चाहिए, एक में सेकेंडरी होना चाहिए, ये चीजों के बारे में पता है. There is nothing, absolutely, and even if it is there, it is on paper. So I think, but at the same time, I have seen the people have the now district level. I have seen district level disaster management now policy has been made, book is there, but it needs to be upgraded every year. So there is a need that whosoever is concerned, and mitigation and remedial measures, only it can be the active participation of the stakeholders. Now, when we say any disaster, if earthquake happens, how many people are there? Have we, like, I tell you, if suppose Lucknow or Hyderabad, Sikandrabad, I know, there are two twin cities that are connected by a bridge. If the bridge collapses, what happens? You have casualties. So the location of resources, pooling it and placing it before and practicing it, you don't know. If today, if in a fire happens in a hospital building, where these people are going to go? If at all we are to rescue them, which hospital they will go? Like a today pandemic, now it has given a lesson. Now today we know ki kaha kitna, how many beds are there, how you can be there. So that's what I say ki this sudden occurrence, the storm, heat wave, earthquake, volcanic disruption, it happens not in our country, but it happens in Japan or a South American country. There are many of that, this volcanic disruption is there. But progressive occurrence, which landslide, drought, flood, epidemic, pandemic, we should know. After a Spanish flu, this is the first time pandemic. Also, I have heard a pandemic, the definition of pandemic. I don't think we have anticipated that India will be stuck by the cruel sword of this pandemic. We had some few, the second wave, we were helpless sometime. I've seen, I think, everybody's family, the people have suffered, they have died. So I think unless we prepare ourselves, and we have got education, as our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ajay has already pointed out, we have to be trained, and so the various courses at our level and a good research of doing it even if at district level, the research has to be a deeper. It can't be at a national level, whatever it should be the policy, how it should be done, what should be included. So there should be various case studies should be carried out in a various type of disasters that we should be subject. And the lesson learned, we must, otherwise we will perish. So second is this mindless, social. How I mean, today, first time by the national education policy, we are thinking of 6% of GDP will be earmarked. Now, saying at 6%, but actually availability and doing it on ground, I've seen a lot of that. I was involved in such a Chavian for implementation I was in consultancy. I tell you, a company has left it, thinking we can't do, because so mind-boggling bureaucracy and other things are there. It stifles you. It stifles. So I think as a researcher, as creating knowledge, getting new knowledge, we should be very critical. We should ask the question, never accept what it is written. So I think I've done some work also. There are 1,000 buildings, of Lucknow. At least they have identified which are the vulnerable buildings. So vulnerability and has to be minimized. Anything, if you are vulnerable more for anything, you are not prepared. If you are not prepared, or whatever the issue is there, you don't have people trained, or your resources are not earmarked, you will spend more in disaster management. So this endless development, you cannot stop it. But at least there should be a balance between how the development should take place. The civil engineers, the town planners, our own executives should be more responsive for that. With that, I think it is the apt time, and it will give us, I think, nothing more than when we are facing two disasters at the same time. I think something good will provide. So vulnerability needs to be also addressed. Poverty, socio-economic issues, economic system, and how we spend the money, how we are prepared, how unsafe conditions we are living. I think Dr. Gupta also pointed out about how the unsafe conditions are there. The buildings which has got a life, Bombay, if you say, Calcutta, you say, many multi-story building, it looks like that it will collapse the other day. So I think the people, it is collapsing. So I think, we have never seen a flooding of, Bombay, Calcutta. These are the British designed. But today it is happening because where the drain is there, the building is constructed. There should be पहले पत्थर पूरा पैसा बढ़ाने के लिए बड़ी all payments are there. All payments used to be earthen. Now there is no place where the water also goes inside. So the water is not discharging. Well, discharging capacity has reduced. So now it flows on road. It has to seek its own way. Water seeks its own path. So it will come on the road. So I think there are many issues, many policy planners, and also we have I think in the disaster management, mitigation, and its avoidance as a closely related with, it is a multidisciplinary subject. Health, healthcare also is also important. Engineering services, इनके पास crane हो, ये उसको कर सके, and the earmarking of resources is very, very important in case of pandemic. Now today, and there should be active use of GIS must be done. If you look at the schools, you look at the hospitals, it says a dotted key where the hospitals or a primary health center should come. You will be surprised, it is all not proper. The GIS must be used. The GIS base with everything on a GIS map should be marked, vulnerable areas should be marked, and then we should take action. I have purposely avoided the man-made disaster. It itself is a subject, and but what level we can do, I think there is various courses which our university has launched, like a postgraduate diploma and certificate courses and other things. It will help us It will help the government officials. Also, we have an expert from NIDM. It will help everyone. It help the community. It will help the society. And they should do some cases study. They go on the ground to understand what it is. So with that, I think it's nice. I think our team of Anushri, Dr. Rajlakshmi, Amit, they have worked hard to make it successful. I'm going to, in these 3 days, it will be enlightening for us to hear your views and have some positive, recommendation, positive thinking, positive papers, and should come in this. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. With your deliberations, with your deliberations on the environment protection, ecological balance, use of technology, and preparedness for disaster management, sir have very beautifully explained the quote, which a very famous quote that says, "Prevention is better than cure." So let us move ahead. Now we will, first of all, please allow me to welcome our today's speakers for the sessions. Professor Chandan Ghosh, HOD, RID and IDM, and Ms. Asha Sharma, HOD, Mass Communication and Journalism Department, Invertis University, Bareilly. We welcome you, sir and ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Amit Sinha, sir, the Program Coordinator and Assistant Professor, Institute of Management, Commerce and Economics, Sri Ram Sarup Memorial University, to explain the context setting of today's event. Please, sir. Sir, you are muted.
Yes, thank you. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And first of all, I would like to extend my extreme gratitude towards Honorable ED and IDM Shri M.K. Bindal ji, Honorable VC SRMU Professor A.K. Singh ji, respected Professor Anil Kumar Gupta ji, HOD CDRM and IDM, and respected Pro VC Sir SRMU Professor Ajay Prakash ji, to guide and support us to plan and conduct this 3-day FDP training program on disaster risk reduction and disaster management. I would also like to thank our esteemed speaker who have agreed to reshuffle their busy schedules and take out time for this program. And I'm also thankful for the senior faculty members from our university and other institutions, those who have joined this program. Thank you so much. And I cannot forget all the participants who have shown great interest and joined this program in great numbers. I'm thankful to them also. Because the success of this program lies in their participation only. So first of all, I would like to give a brief of this program. In today's time, sudden influx of disaster is encompassing all of us, whether it's a forest fire in Australia, in USA, or pandemic like COVID-19. Even we are facing the impact of Taute for last few days. And I'm telling you, it is on western part of India, and there is an early sign of another cyclone that is building up in the eastern part of the India, that is on Bay of Bengal, and that is supposed to take shape around somewhere around 23rd of May and may hit coastal area of Odisha and West Bengal on around somewhere around 27th of May. So fury of disaster is not limited, and considering India, its vast dimension, geographic expansion, we are getting hit by a disaster, X disaster or Y disaster every day and now. So we have, I'm very happy to share that our speaker has been dealing on variety of topics in our day-to-day that are important, that are having impact on disaster, and we can have some relief from the disaster. As VC sir has rightly said, we cannot avoid them, but definitely we can make some preparedness for that. So on the day itself, we have our esteemed speaker like Mr. Ashish Pandaji, consultant in faculty CDRM and IDM. He would be sharing the basics of disaster management and institutional mechanism in India. And his address will give a hint in our career planning for participants from humanities and law domain to a great extent. And same way, our second speaker for the day, Professor Chandan Ghosh sir, has taken a topic that is on civil engineering and disaster management. So again, in his session, there would be a new dimension for civil engineering participants to look for the job or improve in their market employability is there. And same way, like in today's time, we cannot avoid or ignore the impact of media, whether it's an electronic medium or print medium, or even social media is there, WhatsApp, YouTube, we are getting information from all sorts. So today's last speaker for the day, Ms. Asha Sharma ji, HOD Mass Communication, University, will be talking on these important aspects of disaster management and the role of media in that part. So definitely the participant from mass communication background can look for some future employment opportunities in that domain also. On day two, we were discussing, if science and technology is there, we can make our life easy to a great extent. And on the same line, the speaker for that tomorrow, but he is so keen on this disaster management aspect, he is present in this inaugural session also. Welcome you, Engineer Avdesh Kumar ji, once again. He is assistant professor at University, and he would be talking about the use of science and technology in disaster reduction and disaster management. So my request is from engineering background participants who are having engineering background and disciplines, they can attend his program for sure and get ideas wherein they can use their knowledge and application for the disaster risk reduction. And third thing, disasters are not hitting just humans also, they are challenges for our environment and ecology also. So our esteemed speaker on day two, Dr. Arun A. Shah, he is from Wildlife SOS Bangalore. He would be talking about the conflict between man and animals and their management during this disaster things. So again, participant from humanities and law, etc., can look forward for his session to have an idea for their career planning. And last not least, we cannot avoid disaster, but definitely we can take some steps to minimize the financial losses of disaster. That is very important aspect of the financial preparedness. So there would be a session on that financial preparedness towards disaster management on the day session 3 of the day 2. That would be I would be taking that session. So and on the last day of the program, that is third day, we will start the program with a very important aspect of disaster management. Like we have seen in the last 15-16 months, continuous impact of COVID-19 has created some stress amongst masses, victim, COVID infected or not, even entire families having challenges. So Mr. Ashish Pandaji would be taking a session on social care in post-disaster situation, issues and challenges in India. So that is again a very important aspect wherein, needless to say, participant from psychology and the counseling things can have some input for there, how to go about it. And second session on the third day would be taken by Professor Girish C. Mishra, Dean OPJ, Jindal University, Raigad, and he would be talking about the very important aspect on the women and the disaster reduction program. So we cannot think of anything if entire community or humanity is not working together, and females being an important part of their role and social aspects would be discussing there. And again, in the last session of the this program, in the third day of the third session, Professor Dr. Rajlakshmi Srivastava, Associate Professor, IMC and SRMU, will be taking session on disaster and mental health. This is again a very relevant point for the day. So again, a student from or participant from psychology or management can explore career opportunities in this domain. I have firm belief that by the end of this program on third day, that is on 21st of the May, all the participants would be in a better position to have an understanding of multidisciplinary nature of disaster management. And definitely they can help from these deliberation and can prepare themselves to take on any tough situation created by these disasters. So with this, I welcome you all once again in the program. And I would like Dr. Anushree ma'am to take the proceeding further. Thank you so much. Thank you. Anushri ma'am. I think Anushri ma'am is not there. So on behalf of her, I would request Dr.
Yes,
Ram.
sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for explaining the schedule of this eFDP training program. Now I would like to invite Dr. Raj Lakshmi, Associate Professor, Institute of Management, Commerce and Economics, Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University, and Program Coordinator of this event to deliver the vote of thanks. Ma'am, please. Raj Lakshmi, ma'am.
Please unmute yourself.
Sorry, it was actually muted. I'm extremely sorry because from the host side it was muted. Thank you so much, Dr. Anushri. I want to start this very quick vote of thanks to all the esteemed guests present over here. So before starting the vote of thanks, I just want to quote two lines with the quotation and the knowledge sharing by Professor Anil sir, जिन्होंने बोला कि ख्वाहिशें बहुत बढ़ गई हैं हमारी, तो सहम सी गई हैं ख्वाहिशें, सहम सी गई है ख्वाहिशें, जरूरतों ने शायद उनसे ऊंची आवाज में बात की होगी। सर ने बोला ना कि 1 BHK, 2 BHK, 3 BHK, हम इतना अपने आप को आगे तक ले जा चुके थे कि शायद हम पीछे छोड़ गए थे एक एनवायरनमेंट को, एक अपनी सादगी को, और नेचर ने वापस हमें उसी पे रिवर्स बैक दिया है कि नहीं, यू हैव टू बी इन योर लिमिट। और आशीष सर ने बहुत अच्छा बोला, लाइक पॉजिटिविटी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। तो जो हम कहते हैं ना कि मन के हारे हार है, मन के जीते जीत, तो डेफिनेटली इज दिस टाइम लाइक वी हैव टू बी वेरी वेरी पॉजिटिव। इन माय सेशन आई विल टेल सम टिप्स टू यू ऑल कि किस तरह से इस कोविड टाइम को भी आप अपने लिए कैसे एक अपॉर्चुनिटी बना सकते हो। So on behalf of Sri Ram Swarup Memorial University, I, Dr. Raj Lakshmi, the program coordinator of this FDP, really want to thank all the esteemed guests present over here. My Vice Chancellor Professor A.K. Singh sir, जिन्होंने बहुत अच्छा एक आइडिया दिया हमें रिसर्च के लिए, GIS के लिए, हमारे ऑल टाइम लीडर, हमारे मोटिवेटर प्रोफेसर अजय प्रकाश सर, डेफिनेटली जिनके गाइडेंस से ही सारे काम हम करते हैं और हम सफल होते हैं। हमारे प्रोफेसर गुप्ता सर, अनिल गुप्ता जी, जिन्होंने बहुत ही अच्छी टॉक दी, बहुत ही थॉरो हमने उस चीजों को देखा समझा कि उन्होंने बहुत ही छोटी वर्ड में बहुत सारी चीजें कह दी। डेफिनेटली सर, थैंक यू सो मच। आवर सुपर कोऑर्डिनेटिंग, सुपर मोटिवेटिंग आशीष पांडा जी, जिनकी वजह से सारे प्रोग्राम्स हम लोग इतने स्मूथली कोऑर्डिनेट कर पाते हैं। डेफिनेटली माय टीम मेंबर्स, Professor Dr. Amit and Dr. Anushri, all the directors, deans present over here, all the faculty members, and a special thanks to those all the audience who came across the whole country, chahe Telangana ho, main bhi dekh rahi thi, Andhra, Telangana, then Kerala, we have all the region across, and very much thank to all. And yes, last but not the least, the whole team of my student, the most energetic, the backbone of this program, my student coordinators, Kush, Anurag, Garima, Anshuman, Arslan, Janvi, Shrinkala, Avril, and Karthik. I'm sorry if I forgot any name, and I'm very sure that I should be not forgetting any of you, because you guys are still in my mind and you really did well. So with this quote, I want to end my vote of thanks. The Stephen King said, there is no harm to be happy for the best as long as you are prepared for the worst. ठीक है, तो ये वर्स्ट टाइम आ गया है, बट वी हैव टू प्रिपेयर फॉर द बेस्ट, और हमें इसी को अपनी अपॉर्चुनिटी बनाना है कि आपदा में अवसर जो बोला गया है ना, डेफिनेटली हमें कुछ ना कुछ ऐसा करना है। एंड आई एम सो मच थैंकफुल टू ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट, ऑल द एमिनेंट स्पीकर for seeking their help to providing the help for this wonderful show. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Anushri. I think ma'am, you are muted. Kush, please unmute Anushri ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Moving ahead, now it's the time to start our technical sessions. In today's technical session, Ms. Janvi Gupta, student coordinator and student of BBA first year, will be assisting me. The first session would be taken by Professor Chandan Ghosh, HOD, RID, and IDM, on civil engineering and disaster management. May I now request Janvi to please introduce Professor Chandan Ghosh to start the session. Janvi.
Ma'am, shall I begin?
Yes, yes.
There are no limits to what you can accomplish. I repeat, there are no limits on what you can accomplish except the fact that you are trying to get rid of what you really want. Next in the queue, we have another promising speaker who's none other than Professor Chandan Ghosh Sir, HOD in RID at NIDM. Sir has pursued his engineering from IIEST, formerly known as Bengal Engineering College, with his trade being civil. The master's was done by him with the same trade from Jadavpur University. He has done his PhD from IIT Kanpur and doctorate in engineering from Ibaraki University, Japan, and has been serving NIDM MHA Gold since July 2006 as professor and head in Resilient Infrastructure Division. He has also served Faculty of Civil Engineering at IIT BHU from the year 1990 to 2000. Sir has also done his postdoctoral research in Japan and was on deputation to IIT Jammu from September 2019 to December 2020, where he served as Dean of Student Welfare. Currently, Professor Ghosh works in areas of earthquake geotechnology, reinforced earth, seismic microzonation, ground improvement techniques, geosynthetics, and bioengineering measures for sustainable development. More than 135 papers by him has been published in reputed journals and conference proceedings. As recognition to his seminal contribution, he was honored with Leonard Prize for the best doctoral thesis in 1993, with CIDC Vishwakarma Award in year 2013 and Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019 by Indian Geotechnical Society. Now, I would request Sir to grace the event with his words. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank
Yes, sir,
you
you are audible.
and good morning. थोड़ा हिंदी में भी बोलें क्या?
Yes, sir. बिल्कुल sir.
हाँ, हिंदी, इंग्लिश, बंगाली, जापानीज. हाँ, ठीक है. थोड़ा let us be a little bit informal, but of course this is being recorded. First of all, I am thankful to SRM University and an IDM MOU through which this program is being conducted, and also our NIDM team, Professor Anil Gupta and his team, of course Ashish Pandaji, who always give a sense of belonging as a positive mindset and positivity always. So always we work together in a team spirit. Of course, due to COVID, now you can see that we are home almost a month, but this doesn't mean that it can stop us. We have brought out a new dimension into our learning, associating more than 370 participants I can see. So, and then we have brought into a new dimension, a new way of living together in this manner, and then where we talk about things that where we are facing for more than 1 year, and another is also there in the coastal area on the western side, which is also there. So under this condition, talking about disaster management, in fact, even though I have become from civil engineering to social engineer, so choosing a topic and just speaking something for the sake of just as a lecture probably will not justify our position, your also motivation. So I have taken something where we are dealing just now and which is coming or has already started, that cyclone. So how to bring resilience and how to make things happen before before it arrives us, what kind of preparation that we have to make, and what are the IoT or ICT based devices, which, you know, most of the engineering students now, even physics, science students also, they are moving towards computer science, database, STEM, even from school level. So today we'll see that most of the things will be just a common man's perspective, what we were in 132 AD and what we are just now. We have achieved so many things, but still we are talking about disaster, talking about resistance, resilience, and talking so many things, and we are also concerned. So let me share this with where we can have a combination. Okay, let me share. तो इसमें मैंने ये चूज किया है, आई थिंक 20-25 minutes I want to take it, that it is about ICT or IoT based tools and technique for managing disasters in wait. So in this case, what you can see, what we have seen in February 7th, a live, got a live from the debris on 7th February in Chamoli, Vishnugad area. And the happiness, and this is a most attractive scene or photograph, but more than 200 people were trapped and their whereabouts are not known, those who are working there. So when we are making tunnels or when we are making heavy constructions, all the DPRs are made, all calculations are made, and how many people are deployed, it is also there. What are the work to be carried out? These are all there. And there are system to keep record and database and goal to finish, complete. Or if anything like this happen, that it has happened on 7th February, Sunday, then what kind of precautions or what kind of warning system or what kind of preparedness or resilience way out the construction agency and people around that where this construction mega dam project was going on, which is more than 22 kilometers away from the source of that debris that came in. And you know, after that, now it is more than 2.5 months. Lots of team visited, lots of findings were made, special report has been made. The reason for that debris, reason for that also has been chalked out, submitted in reports, and then we are waiting. What next? So all those 140 plus people whose whereabouts are not known, can't you think that they could be given a certain technology, which I am going to talk about, which is called LoRa-based technology or IoT-based device, a panic button, or a radar-based a communication 857 megahertz to 858 megahertz radar-based communication device to each one of them, so that wherever they are, whether they are 10 meter below or they are 50 meter below, we could locate them within the debris, where they are, how many of them, where they are located, and then how. Don't you think it is when a mega project like this are going on, where we have seen somewhere that 1,500 crore is the kind of loss that NTPC has to dole out. Of course, it is we pay. It is from the country. that we have suffered this loss just because we didn't have proper warning system or proper kind of communication system. We didn't have. So now question comes, 1,500 crore again will be given from the exchequer to compensate and to recreate, remake, and make the dam possible. That is our human motto. That is the positivity. But what kind of preparations that we are going to make? So I will talk a little bit on that. Just this is a background. And then what are those sensors to be applied? Like the sensor device may be having temperature, voltage level, location, vibration, movement, noise. These are all now, most of our mobile phones are having many of these things. And now new IoT based or new AI based phones are coming up at affordable price, that which will make like SpO2 that we are measuring, which has become the order, which has become every household item, selling from 500 to 2,000, 3,000 rupees. SpO2, whether it is less than 90 or 94 or something like that, where COVID. And then there are certain some kind of IoT based sensors or biosensors has come, which can measure more than 15 to 20 parameters of our body at a time. So when those need to be connected in a server, so I'll talk about that part. Then what is the network? Network has to be network powered by LoRa. It is low range, long range or low range, or not low, long range. It can go and detect things even 700 to 800 kilometer distance. 700 to 800 kilometer distance by a low power consumption system or gateway, which communicates through that. I'm not going into those details. 857 to 59 megahertz, something like that, in that 3 megahertz range, and which can detect any of the devices that which are sensor or IoT sensor in 700 to 700 kilometer away. It can, or it is a diameter, you can say. Or if we keep that in a city like Delhi, which is 40 kilometer by 40 kilometer, so one such sensor can detect with more than 10,000 such devices, whether it is mobile phone. If 10,000 people are having mobile phone, those can be detected along with their location, because mobile phone we allow in our Facebook or WhatsApp, we allow location sensor, or we allow our many things. We allow that it will read, it will be able to see our phone data to the extent possible, not the financial data. So more than 10,000, 20,000 such devices can be cordoned and connected to that gateway. And then it will tell all these things together there in a segregated way and together. I'll show some example that which are being applied in Delhi and Chennai. Then it is a highly customizable platform, adaptable for any use or any cases. So, and it is a simple, easy to interface, packed with intelligence and insights. These are the application devices which are available as a just keyring wearable products, which can be kept with any people, or the people that which I have talked about in the context that जो कि चमोली में जो नीचे गए हैं, उनके पास ऐसा एक डिवाइस, आजकल हम SOS डिवाइस, पैनिक बटन, बहुत कुछ यूज करते हैं, but making them in a system and giving certain warning or taking some decisions is the method that which in our country we are applying. Technologies devised elsewhere, but we are applying them now. I'll give you some of those things. So it is altogether, I would say that it is all computer communication, because Internet of Things. Now, most of the students, most of the universities, most of us, we are familiar with that what kind of things that we are using now. So in this case, I would say that how this is being used, of course, it will take a long time, but I will give in some application only in brief. And context will be COVID and carbon dioxide measuring. Like I'm sitting here for 2 hours in my room, in my house. What is the CO2 level here in ppm? Even though world average we know, everybody we know from 1990 onward, from 290 or 300 to it has come in last 30 years, it has come to 415 or 22nd. So it has come into 417 or something like that. This we know, 470, but what does it mean? So in this room, if I'm sitting, it may be in Delhi, now it is showing less than 200. It varies. But if 2-3% sitting in a room, you know that COVIDs are happening in a family, and it has become aerosol borne. And we have been coming to know a lot of such technical things, mucormycosis or black fungus, and many, many new terms we are coming to know. So I'll show you just a glimpse of that, how carbon dioxide, because we are now exhausted with SpO2, oxygen measurement. Suddenly it is coming down. That what is the next parameter that we have to search in? One of the research that it is telling that if we are able to monitor carbon dioxide using IoT device, as I said, then maybe there are some indications. Then we are having flood, rainfall. You are getting textual messages. You are getting maybe some very, very, very lousy announcement in our hundreds of news channels. Yes, it is coming, it is coming, it is going, it is going. But how many of us have been able to know that realistically using our GIS, satellite imagery, and radar sensors that having, how to combine them, tell them that have we ever to see that minute to minute in our mobile phone? We expect that in our mobile phone it should tell us that which direction, not synthetically, realistically, because we are data whenever using satellite, we are taking realistic data using Doppler radar. We are taking Doppler radar. We are taking all this data, that where we are doing, what we are missing in synthesizing data, rather than telling something and some footage or photographs collected from here and there, all segregated manner. We should be able to know that when it is raining in our city area, in our village, what will be the depth of the rainfall, what will be the depth of inundation. That should show in a GIS map, wave GIS map, not synthetically, really by proper interpretation. Then I'll show some of the protections that we have to make, a very, very nice way to
जैसे मान सब ना रजिस्टर ले ले आओ हाजिरी ले
also gateway the LoRa technology is a long range technology, an application in Chennai city. I'll end up this. Now about the COVID, you see, COVID. So about the COVID, we are now in Southeast Asia, and we are here, somewhere here. Now it is coming down, but for counting sake, you can say, because number of tests and the way that it has spread, there are lots of ifs and buts which are not realistically plotted or done or being shown. And of course, we don't need that also. But the thing is, whether third wave is going to come or not, we started thinking on that. If so, when and how? But see, some other country who are health-wise much more improved, and transparent or much more prepared. And our preparations and other things, we know very well. Nobody knows better than us. So we are in the first one. Now it is more than 3 times, 4 times it has increased this dimension. And here it is, and we don't know whether it will go like this, or it is coming down, or whatever it is coming down, whether it is for statistical sake, we will take it or not. And at the same time, when these countries, they have faced the, here you see 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2, then like this. So with the timeline that when this COVID started, when this data is available, if we are telling that yes, third, fourth is still there, but only check is that now immunization has started. Immunization means vaccination has started. So we may not face, because this country also, they have faced this thing when vaccination has not been done. So there may be something that third wave, if we say that other country has faced, we will also face. It is still to be looked into in detail. We do not know whether second, third, or fourth, or fifth will be coming or not. But at least we can see that example others, but vaccination is to be emphasized. So, what is this? Okay. Okay, why it is coming? Speakers by definition, microphone. Okay. Okay. So now COVID has come. There is something that why this is. I'm seeing this one, why it is not going off. Okay. So O2 means oxygen. Now we can see that oxygen demand we have met up somehow by now. Black fungus, whatever we are facing, those who are in the hospital, it is still found beyond drug-wise control. Now DRDO has come up with 2G, which is being administered now. We don't know what will be the impact. Then third wave for India, very likely or not. Just now I tried to explain, but there are many other explanations and other things I can say. Okay. Then, what is this? Okay, so one part is carbon dioxide monitoring to lower to lower coronavirus threat using this, it is called Mutal core, where it can monitor the carbon dioxide using LoRa sensor. And if it is more than 1000 ppm, if it is more than 1000 ppm, then it will give a panic, a button, automatically it will give a red color, it will become red color. If I put a sensor here, like I have the mobile, I am globally connected with this mobile. So that sensor, if I am keeping in my room or anywhere, as I said, more than 10,000 of this, and it will measure, it will have that sensor into that, and it is being connected by that 857 to 859, that megahertz, through that, it will be connected to the gateway. Even I said that it is more than 700 kilometer distance also we can say. And it can be again ported to anywhere in the world. So if I'm here and if anybody, my relative is in America, and when it is IoT based, all these things, and if this technology can take my data over here, it can be monitored by someone in America or wherever we are, the way that we are connected to. So whether my room or my position or a factory or a place or a flat where so many COVID patients are there, or when someone is affected by corona and how it is moving or it is affected to entire family this time in the second wave. So if carbon dioxide is being monitored by this LoRa technology with IoT sensor, and if it gives a panic button like this beyond 1000 ppm, it will give a panic, or it will give that red one, which can be seen in the server, which is connected with all these devices. And if 12 ppm means that 1200 ppm means that 2% of the air in the room has already had lungs contact at least once. So at this level, if we live in a 1200 ppm level, generally in a bedroom, when two people are sleeping for 8 hours, in 8 hours, if you measure that carbon dioxide, it may touch down, it may touch up even 2000 ppm, even 2000 ppm. So in that case, when we have the room completely closed and we are constantly taking this carbon dioxide, releasing carbon dioxide, and then they recirculated, it is not going out. Think of that family infection of COVID. It is, so carbon dioxide level is increasing there in the family where we are keeping all doors and everything shut. And it has become now aerosol borne. So if we are able to maintain one of the, maybe several, because SpO2 has been done for the last 1 year plus we have been doing. Now there may be some other indication or light using this LoRa technology, this IoT or carbon dioxide monitoring sensor. Wherever we are, when it is collected through that, we'll be able to sense that where carbon dioxide is going on, even though we get all those database in our country that what is a AQI and everything is there, but those are not this much perfect. So for that, we have to keep at in our home level because every family is getting affected. So at least we can have, along with SpO2, another thing is that this is a very low cost, and one such button or one such device or two such device in every flat, and then we can measure, and we do not have to measure, it will be measured in the server and it will show that what is the level going, and then some kind of warning or some kind of sensor like things can be disseminated that, oh, now it is going beyond 1000, please open the door and ventilation, let it allow. So at every 50th breath that a person takes in this room consists of air that has already been exhaled. So these are simple maths. But on the other hand, this is a very popular photograph taken in a normal, like this, this one, a crab. When carbon dioxide increased by 7 times, you can see that reference is given over here, how its life is getting more and more. We say more carbon dioxide means more greenery. We know this very well. So this life, so in one case where corona's life is getting extended, when it is in the family, or in the family that where carbon dioxide level is increasing, so corona is also multiplying, so it is affecting family. Maybe it is one of the corollary, you can say. Okay. So these are the panic button, or these are the carbon dioxide monitor button. These are commercially available very much in our country. And if this one is kept in the room, it will automatically monitor, and this color button will become red or will become yellow depending on the carbon dioxide level. So there are thousands of such devices are available. So it can indicate that it may be yellow when it is 800, it may be 1000, when it is red, it may be 1500. It will flash and it will give some signal, or it will buzzer sound will be there. All these things can be connected. So anyway, disaster management definitions are lots of are there. We are all dealing in this manner. Really, we are not looking at the problem from the source itself. how many of us, we get our thunderstorm information in a map like this, in our city map, or in the Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra? Do we get such kind of how much rainfall is going to happen, even though we are having 10,000 plus rainfall gauge is there, automatic weather stations is there. Even Karnataka is having more than 6,000 rain gauge. So what we are doing with, are we cooking anything? What people want, what public want, they want that in my area, what is the amount of rainfall is going to happen? You see, in millimeter, these are the amount of rainfall. Here, no rainfall. These are the places where 500 millimeter rainfall may occur. So public want in their mobile phone such kind of information, not about a flowery language and those footage from here and there and making all news channel. Are we not up to this, making this kind of data to generate, to help people to know that every mobile phone, when it is working, we should be able to see in our Google map, which will be uploaded with such kind of intensity map, but we are not getting it. Moreover, this is somewhere else. We are not giving it, even though every university, every institute, every research organizations are having ArcGIS, QuickGIS, and what not we are having. But what we want in my locality, how much will be the rainfall depth? Not about rainfall. How much inundation is going to happen? So with this color, such kind of mapping, we should know that, yes, in my locality, or where is the 15-minute rainfall depth, if it rains for 15 minutes, it will give us in our mobile phone or IoT devices. Through that, we should be able to say that this is the amount of rainfall in my courtyard, which is going to have this much depth. When we have got drone-based LiDAR camera, where even millimeter, less than a millimeter of elevations we can sensitize. And we are talking about something which is already 19th century things. So we have to adapt to such kind of things. Now thing is, okay, rainfall are happening, natural, but how to increase the navigability of the stream or river or canal nearby? What are the quick fix kind of things? See, one of the area that we can put sand in this plastic geotextile bag, geomembrane bag, and we can increase the capacity of this river or stream to flow without inundation this side. And this can be made by local people. For that, we have to keep this material only. These are all local material, and generally flood gives early warning 2 days, 3 days, 4 days after, like in case of cyclone also. So we can prepare ourselves locally in this manner. Okay. How many of us are familiar with protecting our facility by flood wall like this, rather than removing everyone? Putting how many teams at the site is not important. What we are looking at, yes, we are prepared like this, is not important. Importance is what are the resilience measure we are taking when flood water or rainwater are getting accumulated, and what kind of maximum or minimum protections that we can do at our local level. By putting a wall itself is good enough to save properties of crores. So there are many such resilience, local resilience manner that we do not generally accept to it. Okay. So these are something like other kind of resilience manner in the city, the flooding, something like this, or something like making a road functional by putting this tube, geomembrane tube, which are plenty available in our country, so that this road doesn't get disturbed by the flood water or extra water. So I want to say that that high resilience, whether it is disaster recovery, whether it is emergency response, whether it is warning, evacuation, whether it's risk knowledge, whether land use, whether it's coastal resource management, everywhere. Resiliency is, we have to see by taking some of those measures which are being said. When earthquake comes, like on 29th April, there was an earthquake in Sonitpur, Assam, about 100 kilometers and away from the Guwahati city on the other side of the river Brahmaputra. What we expect as a common person in our mobile phone or in our TV, in our internet devices, we want to see that when the place that I'm standing, when these red colored waves, how much time after 27 seconds, the earthquake shaking you are going to present. So don't we expect these things from our scientists? So these are the things that public want. And what are the, then recently now study is being made using this mobile phone as an acceleration sensor, the seismometer. And lots of work has been done where each of the mobile phone will be acting as an antenna to tell that how much vibration that it is experiencing in the first 10, 15, 20 kilometer from the epicenter, which are being determined in 2 to 3 seconds of time, so that they will be able to generate such kind of waves in our device. And it will tell up to 100, 200, 300, 500 kilometer, how much time that it will take to reach to the spot where we are having GPS with our mobile phone. So these are the things that for the last 5-6 years now that our Android and Google, they have been looking into using this mobile phone as a seismic monitor rather than spending 6 to 10 lakh for each of the seismic station that we have deployed. More than 70,000 such sensors are there across the globe. But now we have several billions of these devices which can be used locally to make this kind of warning system. So anyway, these are many such technology are there, IoT based and also radio frequency and wireless GPRS, GSM, all these solutions are there. So you may find more. And I want to that LoRa technology, that a shopping mall in City Walk, Delhi, where even -2 in South Delhi, there they have used the LoRa technology. It is a Mutual Core is the company. And they have used now, even in the parking lot, everywhere they have used this, wherever you are, they are able to count. There is one says how many people are entering, they can count. How many people are there, in which place they are. This LoRa technology using gateway, they will locate, not only locate them, if 20,000 people is there, so they will be able to count 20,000 people are there. Where they are located, they will tell that in this room, in this shop, in this case, so many people are there. So these are the kind of technology has come to our door to use them. Like I am saying that in City Walk and many hotel, 5-star hotel now they are using. And whenever you are in any difficulty, you can push the button. So it has been made now in Norway or even in Germany, France, in many places, in all school rooms. Now this kind of panic button is there. And it will check many other things, carbon dioxide and health and many other parameters it will measure. And then if in school rooms, say 30 students are there, if this level is going up, automatically the server will detect that in this room, now the carbon dioxide level has gone up. So you have to do something. So they will check that whether appropriate measures can be made or not. All these things have been programmed, as well as accordingly the response team, service teams are being connected to get into action, whether it is fire, whether it is ambulance, whether it is hospital bed, everything is being now made connected to this system using this technology, where it doesn't take any energy. Even 1 or 2 pencil battery can give the life of a panic button for more than 5 years. You do not have to change. 5 years two pencil battery only, which cost 20 rupees. So in the Chennai city, they have used now this thing for the public also. Fire, police, and everything. Wherever you are, just push this button in bus stops and many places. So it is getting now bus shelters, public parks, shopping area, industrial area. 24 panic buttons installed for the time being, but now we can go for much more. And also, like we are taking training, more than 400 are attending. This kind of system, that feedback that we take, we make Google form and we get this kind of graph. Whenever these devices are there, so what feedback it is, the server has got everything programmed to get all this feedback in this form. So we know that which are the buttons are functioning, not functioning, and then which has given the red one, siren has given or not, everything is being coordinated. So I would say that now I want to end here, but there are these things are happening. Just interesting thing is now in Japan, they have brought out a technology where during earthquake, the building is going to levitate. Building is going to levitate. So in that case, it is a very, very, it is a concept that came up that we can make, when we can make a train to run on a levitation, fastest train, that it is maglev, it is on levitation. So when it is levitation in magnetic, heavy magnetic is there, so earthquake is there, so we can put the same kind of thing, that building can be lifted because it is so heavy. When a train can be lifted and it runs at more than say 600 km/h. So similar kind of thing, when earthquake comes or sensor comes, we can make our building isolated from the ground, so the ground shaking doesn't come there. There are many other technologies are there. These are all futuristic things are coming and which are possible. Technology is proven, so it is only an application. But we are still stuck by this, to making people understand that if a building, we can recreating earthquake in a large lab, that two buildings, when they are shaken with same earthquake, one is broken, another is standing, which gives a signature to the earthquake resistant technology, which is a signature to the, which is certifying that yes, there is certain technology, although two buildings are looking alike. How many of our institutes we demonstrate such things, where a lot many common people will be there and invited to see the scientific and technological fit that country is doing. We are still to take up these things. Now 20 such research laboratories are being established across the country with the funding of Government of India, 125 crore each, where all these facilities will be there, where people, public and researcher, they can go there, even though some such research institutes are already there. So we can make our earthquake even shaken for 7-story, 8-story building, we can check. Anyway, and this is such one of that technology being applied to stop the Shinkansen in Japan. ये जापान में earthquake आया और उसका 3-4 सेकंड के अंदर डिटेक्ट किया है ये ट्रेन कहां से 250 किलोमीटर में चल रही है, उसमें ऑटोमेटिक ब्रेक लगा करके ट्रेन को रुका गया है. So think of that amount of money that they have saved in 2004, 23rd October. At that time I was there. और ये टेक्नोलॉजी लगा करके, अर्ली वार्निंग सेंसर लगा करके, ऑटोमेटिक ब्रेक लगा करके इस ट्रेन को जस्ट डिरेल हुए हैं, लेकिन डिवास्टेशन नहीं हुआ है. सो आप इसमें जो टेक्नोलॉजी में, अर्ली वार्निंग में जो पैसा लगता है, अगर हम एक ट्रेन और ऐसे फैसिलिटीज को अगर सेव करते हैं, if we talk in terms of business or in terms of ROI, don't you think that this is where that we have to look at, rather than looking for something that ठीक है आएगा तो देखा जाएगा, अभी तक हम ऐसे ही करते रहे हैं. तो anyway, there are some other thing, it is taking time, but we have come from this kind of system to this kind of system that we understood before 1960, and now we have come to communication. We want in our mobile phone this should come, और हम इस तरह से जो अपना सिस्टम में रखे हुए हैं, ये सेस्मिक सेंसर आएगा 2 से 3 सेकंड के अंदर वो बता देगा कहाँ पे अर्थक्वेक हुए हैं और कितना मैग्नीट्यूड क्या हुए हैं. 2 to 3 seconds of time in Japan. हमारे यहाँ अभी तक 5-10 मिनट 20 मिनट लगता है. By the time it has traveled already. तो ये लोरा सेंसर टेक्नोलॉजी का है. ये सब पैनिक बटन का जो मैंने बताया था, और these are all for whether it is panic button one, and then industrial panic button, service call button, like in hotels वगैरह में, customer feedback में, people counter, जैसे कुंभ मेला में 32 लाख हुए हैं क्या, 32 लाख 10,321, ये सब काउंट करके बता देगा. ये जो है कस्टमर, ये जो पीपल काउंटर. अगर किसी मोहल्ला में, किसी मॉल में, किसी जैसे ये सब लगाया गया है सिटी वॉक में, ये छोटा छोटा डिवाइस है, ये डिवाइस रखा गया है, ये लगा देंगे, इट विल काउंट, इट विल ट्रक. जैसे मिल्क वैन अगर कहीं जा रहा है, ट्रकर इसको रखेंगे, गाड़ी में रखेंगे, की के अंदर रखेंगे, वो ट्रक करेगा गाड़ी किधर से किधर जा रहे हैं. एयर क्वालिटी सेंसर जैसे कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड वगैरह ये सब है. स्मार्ट कोविड के लिए जैसे कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड मॉनिटर वाला, ये भी इसमें किया गया है. तो अब IoT सॉल्यूशंस आजकल ये बहुत सारे कुछ आ रहे हैं. Anyway, early warning for disasters are there, and this is earthquake, and this is how earthquake has happened. Thank you. Sorry, I have taken little more time.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting the various technologies that are there for recognizing and for that help us to cope up with the various disasters. That has talked about COVID and carbon dioxide measurement instrument, flood and rainfall mapping, gateway and LoRa technology and its applications in Delhi and Chennai, about black fungus, about the studies which are being made that using mobile phone is acting as an antenna. Android and Google is using these as a smart technology-based tracker for emergency assistance, and discussed about assistant buttons at shopping places and various labs through which earthquakes can be measured, earthquakes can be identified. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you again for giving us the insightful thought on the technology and disaster management preparedness. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, Pandaji, I have taken too much time.
Now, our next, as we have lot of questions in chat box and we are running short out of time, we will be trying to revert these questions through emails. We have already noted down all the questions, and at the end, surely we will be having a question answer discussion round also. So there you can ask your questions, and if not answered, we'll be trying to revert it on email. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Ms. Asha Sharma, HOD Mass Communication and Journalism Department in Invertis University, Bareilly. She will be speaking on the topic, Role of Media During Disaster Management. May I now request Janvi to please introduce Ms. Asha Sharma, ma'am, so that we can start the session. Janvi.
Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that actually counts. With these powerful words, I would like to introduce another prominent speaker for today, who is Ms. Asha Sharma ma'am, HOD in Mass Communication and Journalism Department at Invertis University, Bareilly. Her graduation was pursued in Agra University. She later went on doing her master's from Agra University in Mass Communication and Journalism. Ma'am has done her Master of Philosophy from MCU, which is Asia's #1 University of Journalism. She also did her PhD from MCU Bhopal. With a work experience of about 3 years in radio industry, she has been a part of Radio 90.8 Aapki Awaaz, Radio 90.4 Agra Ki Awaaz, and Radio 92.7 Big FM. She has a great expertise of traditional market and has been a part of Invertis University since the year 2019. Now I would request ma'am to begin with her topic for today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Janvi. Thank you, SRM University. Thank you, everyone. जैसा कि वीसी सर ने बोला था अभी और अभी घोष सर ने भी बताया कि डिजास्टर पर हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है, हम कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते डिजास्टर को. तो बीइंग माय एक्सपर्टाइज इज इन ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया, सो आई वांट टू से वन थिंग. अगर हम डिजास्टर को कंपेयर करें भगवान से, तो हमारा भगवान पर कंट्रोल नहीं है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर हम भगवान को, सबसे पहले आता है ऑलमाइटी गॉड, है ना. बट विद द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ डिजास्टर मैनेजर वी कंपेयर भगवान फ्रॉम डिजास्टर. भगवान इज अ वर्ड भ, ग, व और ना. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, द फर्स्ट लेटर ऑफ भगवान इज भूमि. हमारा अर्थक्वेक पर कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है, अर्थ को हम कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते, भूमि को हम कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते. इट मीन्स भगवान का जो फर्स्ट लेटर है भा, उस पर हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. एंड द सेकेंड लेटर ग, गगन. बारिश आना शुरू होती है, बारिश के पानी को हम किसी ने स्टोर कर ही नहीं सकते, उस पर हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. द सेम थिंग, द थर्ड लेटर ऑफ भगवान इज ग, सेकेंड लेटर इज वा, वायु. एयर पे हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. साइक्लोन तूफान अभी मुंबई में आया, हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. इफ वी वांट टू स्टैंड बट वी आर नॉट एबल. हम बोलते हैं कि हम बहुत ताकतवर हैं, बट हवा के आगे हम स्टैंड नहीं कर पाते हैं. द थर्ड लेटर गगन, द सेम थिंग, बारिश पे हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. एंड द लास्ट लेटर इज ना, पानी. हम कितना भी बांध बना रहे हैं जगह जगह पानी को कंट्रोल करने के लिए, लेकिन जब बाढ़ आती है, फ्लड आता है, तो पूरे के पूरे स्टेट को बहा ले जाता है. उस पर हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. तो सर ने जैसा बोला था कि डिजास्टर जब कोई होता है तो उस पर हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. तो मैं एक ही चीज बोलूंगी, कहते हैं ना भगवान हमको चला रहा है, भगवान पे हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं है. अगर हम ट्रेडिशनली एस्पेक्ट से देखें तो ऑलमाइटी गॉड हमको चला रहा है, हम उस पर कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते. तो इस तरीके से भूमि, वायु, गगन, नीर, डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट, डिजास्टर के जो 4 एलिमेंट्स जो मुझे नजर आते हैं, जो किसी भी तरीके से फ्लड है, अर्थक्वेक है, जितने तूफान है, उन पे हम कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते. अब हम बात करें रोल ऑफ मीडिया की, तो किसी भी डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के लिए जो मीडिया का रोल है वो प्री एंड पोस्ट दोनों है. जैसे अभी हम अगर लास्ट नेपाल वाले अर्थक्वेक की बात करते हैं, या अभी लास्ट फेब हम चमोली वाला अगर देखते हैं, तो मीडिया को बहुत क्रिटिसाइज किया गया था कि यू शो द वन एस्पेक्ट ऑफ चमोली, आप सेकेंड फेज नहीं दिखा रहे, यू शो ओनली द आर्मी, यू शो द ओनली फोर्सेस, यू शो ओनली द पॉजिटिव थिंग्स कि गवर्नमेंट क्या हेल्प कर रहा है, यू डू नॉट शो द कि किस तरीके से हम बह रहे हैं. तो मीडिया के ऊपर वो प्रेशर होता है कि हमें प्री और पोस्ट दोनों चीजें दिखाना होता है. But it's now depend on our viewers, is depend on our listeners, what they want to see, what they want to watch. Disaster management में हम एक चीज बोलेंगे कि media play a vital role at the time of disaster. Now I am audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
अगर बात करते हैं व्हाट इज मीडिया, है ना, एंड व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ मीडिया, तो आई वांट टू से वन थिंग, मीडिया हैज द पोटेंशियल टू प्ले अ मेजर रोल ड्यूरिंग द डिजास्टर. डिजास्टर आता है उस टाइम मीडिया ही होता है जो वहां की एक्चुअल पिक्चर जो होती है वो इन फ्रंट ऑफ व्यूअर्स, इन फ्रंट ऑफ लिसनर्स को प्रेजेंट करता है. और वो जो एक पैनिक सिचुएशन होती है ना, वो हम बोलते हैं अ पैनिक सिचुएशन कैन बी अवॉइडेड बाय सस्पेंसिंग रूमर, है ना. वो सस्पेंसिंग रूमर्स को ना मीडिया अपने व्यूअर्स के आगे प्रेजेंट करता है. जैसे अगर अभी कोविड-19 का अगर हम एक एग्जांपल लेते हैं, तो एक पिक्चर दिखाया गया ड्रोन कैमरा से दिल्ली का कि जो वहाँ का जो वर्किंग पीपल्स हैं, दे मोबिलाइज इनटू देयर villages, their cities, but the real picture, what is the real picture? Real picture is taken is in train. हमारा रेलवे डिपार्टमेंट क्या वर्क कर रहा है, तब अभी क्या था, हम लोगों ने क्या देखा कि भीड़ बस स्टैंड पे, रेलवे स्टेशन पर बहुत ज्यादा है, और लोगों में र्यूमर्स हुए कि इन 2019 में जो कोरोना की सिचुएशन थी, लोगों के मन में वो डर आया और लोगों ने मोबिलाइज करना शुरू कर दिया, एंड दे गो हियर एंड देयर, है ना, दे वांट टू सेव देयर लाइफ। बट मीडिया ने, जो रेलवे डिपार्टमेंट एक बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा था, जो जिस टाइम पे हमारे पास बेड्स नहीं थे, है ना, सब बोल रहे हैं ट्रेनें बंद हो गई हैं, बट आप एक बार रेलवे डिपार्टमेंट का वर्क तो देखिए, ट्रेनें बंद हुई हैं, बट ट्रेनों के जो बर्थ हैं, वो बर्थ कोविड पेशेंट्स के लिए बेड में कन्वर्ट कर दिए गए हैं। वो वर्क किया मीडिया ने दिखाया वो कोविड का जो टाइम था। हाँ, द सेकंड थिंग, वो जो पिक्चर्स था बस स्टैंड एंड रेलवे स्टेशन का, वो भी मीडिया ने दिखाया, है ना। तो मीडिया न्यूट्रल है, मीडिया आपको सारी चीजें दिखाता है जो घटित हो रही हैं, but it's depend on you what you want to see. You want to see the positive news, you want to see the negative news. What you want to grab, you want to grab the positive news, you want to grab the negative news. Most of the time we say it's depend on you. It's depend on you. If we say the contribution of media is in social work, so the role of social networking sites is an entirely new outlook and play a major role in the society during the crisis, during the disaster management. If we say the contribution of social work, so most of the time media play a vital role for the collection funds. If I give an example of Kedarnath disaster, at the time I'm in radio and we collected a fund through media. So for example, we play a Nukkad Natak and we collected a fund for Kedarnath disaster. Through media, we sharing updates and spreading the awareness of that disaster, for the real condition of that disaster. Through media, we provided the operation for volunteers, creating communication. At the time of Kedarnath disaster, the people want to talk with their families, but they are not able. And at the time, media creating the chain of communication. They providing how to create communication with their families. Through media, we are monitoring and providing insights the whole situation. If we say media is good or media is bad, if we are say media in bad light, so I want to say the media too has a full come in bad light, owning the extending situation and giving the unwanted importance. Most of the time the people say the media presenting the sensational news for their TRP. But the media has overlooked basic ethics of journalism. They have the basic ethics of journalism for their TRP. They do not serve anything. Most of the eminent speakers knows the news of Nepal earthquake. At the time of Nepal earthquake, most of the people says that media shows only negative news. Media is in favor of politicians. But I want to say one thing: media has ethics of journalism. When they take the oath of journalist, they know what they serve. It is important that ethics of journalism during the disaster reporting are strictly followed. They survive the grief. Strict people deserve complete privacy, if at all. At the time of disaster, we people lost most of the journalists है ना. इफ वी सेज के कई बार कहा जाता है कि ये डिजास्टर में हम डिजास्टर रिपोर्टिंग जिस भी रिपोर्टर्स को सर्व की जाती है ना, तो हमको एक ओथ दिलाई जाती है कि हम सबसे पहले जो आर वर्क इज फॉर ह्यूमैनिटी प्रोसीडिंग, है ना. वी आर नॉट प्रोफेशनली, यू चूज द लाइन ऑफ जर्नलिज्म, है ना. सो journalism is related to social work. In the line of journalism, we not think about salary, expenditure, taxes, है ना. You choose journalism by their own choice. So the first work is social work. I will give a little example of Gujarat tsunami. When I'm starting my journalism career with Dainik Jagran intern, at that disaster, I saw social work through a journalist. मैंने देखा बहुत उस टाइम पर सब कम्युनिकेट नहीं कर पा रहे थे एक दूसरे से. At the time I saw a journalist of Hindustan Times. They will pay their salary
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, I'm audible?
Yes, ma'am. Now you're audible.
So हम यही बोलेंगे कि डिजास्टर में जो मीडिया का रोल है वो प्री और पोस्ट दोनों में ही है. मीडिया हैज अ चेन who joins family to their
Ma'am, your voice is not coming. Hello, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yes, yes. Now it's audible, ma'am.
So with these words, I say कि जब भी कोई डिजास्टर होता है ना, at the time of disaster, media is unbiased, and media play a vital role. Through media, we gain what actually happened. Not only in verbal communication, from the non-verbal communication. Most of the time, media also unmuted. वो कुछ भी बोलने, most of the time they also lost her family members. They are not able to talk anything, but by their pictures, by their videos, they show what actually happened. So at last, I want to say only one thing: media play a vital role for disaster, और media के through ही, not for disaster, for anything, for COVID. जैसे अभी COVID का disaster ही अगर हम मेजर करें तो कई सारे शहरों में most of the time खबर आ रही है कि अभी बहुत जो सिचुएशन है स्टेबल है. अगर मैं अपने ही एक स्टूडेंट का पिक्चर क्लिक करा हुआ जो बहुत वायरल हुआ था फ्रॉम दैनिक भास्कर, फ्रॉम पत्रिका, फ्रॉम हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स, दे शो is in Bareilly and is in Bhopal. Only 14 dead bodies are burned, but in actually situation is in Bhopal 46 dead bodies are burned, and is in Bareilly. Bareilly is a small city, but is in Bareilly 32 bodies are burned at a single time. But the government says only 14 dead bodies are burned, but through their picture, the real pictures, the real disasters picture comes in front of audience. So from not only for verbal communication, I say from the non-verbal communication, media showed the real picture in front of their audience. So for these words, I say thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for highlighting the importance and the crucial role of media during the times of pandemic and disasters, how the improvement in technologies are helping media platforms for wider reach of their newses, the awareness campaigns, etc. And with this, we are towards the end of our today's session, the last session, which is being taken by Sri Ashish Pandaji, consultant and faculty member at NIDM. He will be speaking on the topic Basics of Disaster Management and Institutional Mechanisms in India. And would request Janvi to please introduce Ashish Panda sir so that we can start the session. Janvi, please.
Yes, ma'am. The greatest glory in living never lies in not falling, but in rising every time we fall. Lastly, I would like to take the honor of introducing one of the most prestigious speakers for this session, who is none other than Sri Ashish Kumar Panda sir. It is under his supreme and phenomenal coordination that we at SRMU have been able to organize this 3-day eFDP training program in collaboration with NIDM. Sri Ashish Kumar Panda sir is one of the faculty members in the ECDRM division at National Institute of Disaster Management, New Delhi. Sir is a Central Secretariat Service Officer. He has done his MBA with specialization in disaster management, and currently he is pursuing PhD in the climate change field. Sir has a remarkable 6-year work experience in the disaster management division of MHA. It was back in September 2019 when he became a part of NIDM as a faculty member. And currently, he is looking after the forestry, biodiversity, and animal inclusive risk reduction section of ECRM division of NIDM. Now, I would request Sir to carry forward the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Janavi. Please permit me to upload my presentation. Huh?
Yes, sir. So you are
Yes, sir.
co-host.
So you are co-host.
Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Visible full screen mode, na?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we are into that penultimate time of today's program. That is the third session, and we're running a bit late. And of course, after two wonderful talks by Professor Chandan Ghosh and Dr. Asha with regard to technological advancement that goes into DRR and DM processes, and also role of media, what can be done during the times of disaster and post-disaster scenario. It is very, very difficult to bring all of you back to the nuances of basics of disaster management, but I will try my best. Next 20 to 25 minutes or 30 minutes, if we have time, then we are going to go through the institutional mechanism that is there prevalent in our country, and what are the basics of disaster management that one should know before going into playing any important role with that respect. So this cycle you can see on onslaught of any disaster impact, we go into the emergency situation, we go for restoration, rehabilitation, reconstruction. This is the response phase and recovery phase. And thereafter, because we have to again face few other disasters in times to come, we go for mitigation, that is the capacity building, not through structural mode, but also non-structural mode also. HR, human resource has to be developed with regard to mitigation. And also when we know that around the corner, just few months or few days ahead, we have to face a disaster, we go into the preparedness mode, that is the pre-impact phase. So this cycle is very, very important to understand as far as disaster management mechanism has to be understood as far as our country is concerned. Slides are moving now. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I begin my talk with three important quotations. One should know that we should know that the way, by the speed that we are utilizing natural resources, we should keep it in mind that we have not inherited the Mother Earth, Mother Land, Mother Nature from our ancestors. हमारा इनके ऊपर कोई पूरा हक नहीं है. Rather, we have borrowed it from our children. So this is our moral responsibility to keep these natural resources in such a fashion that our future generations that comes in the times, they are free to utilize it the way they should. Now, also, we cannot stop natural disasters. That is a very important aspect, but definitely we can arm ourselves with knowledge based and technology upgradation innovations, rightly said by Professor Chandan sir, so that many lives would not have to be lost in the times of disaster or in a post-disaster scenario. Last but not the least, planning is very, very important with respect to how disasters has to be dealt. Like in the times of olden times, that Greek mythology that always plan ahead. It was not raining when the Noah built that famous ark. And this is a famous quotation by Richard Cushing. So Noah prepared for the disasters that was looming over the humankind at the time, and all the species, all the biodiversity, he gave space in his ark. So this is important lesson with respect to planning. These two slides, 21st century, if you have observed keenly, then we are observing not only man-made disasters, but also human-made disasters increasing in number, frequency, and also intensity. That is very, very important to understand that more and more such kind of situations and disasters we are facing on day-to-day basis. Like we are for the past more than 1 year we're facing this pandemic, and just now in our session we mentioned that last 2-3 days we are facing the cyclone in the Arabian side of our Indian peninsula. That is very rare phenomenon. Normally we get these kinds of cyclones in the Bay of Bengal regions, but now intensity of those kinds and frequency of those kinds of cyclones are being observed in Arabian Sea also. So number of disasters at a certain geographical place, and also their frequencies, numbers, and the magnitude with which they come, that is increasing day by day as far as 21st century is concerned. These are few examples of disaster that we are facing these days. I'm not going into the detail of that because of paucity of time. I will leave this my presentation with all the audience. They can go through all these kinds of examples of disasters that we are facing of late across the globe. This slide is very, very important. Continent wise, if you see all the continent, they are facing more and more disasters in times to come, and specifically it is not evenly distributed. Asia, the continent that is facing disasters like anything, and in the Asia, our country India is facing nearly 40% of the disasters out of the total disaster that Asia faces these days. So it is not evenly distributed. So this is also a burden upon us, a country, developing country like India, that we have to use, accumulate, and utilize our resources in such a fashion that optimal utilization can be done, and more lives can be saved in the times of disaster. This is another important graph. The left hand side, you can see the number of reported victims in millions, and also the number of incidences that is increasing. That trend you must have seen of the 20th century and the 21st century. This has increasing trend. But important aspect is the number of that human lives lost. That is, we are in a position to reduce. If I can tell you two examples, the famous 1999 Odisha super cyclone and recent any cyclone, Fani, Felin, or the recent the Tautake cyclone. We are able to evacuate people from the incident area timely because of the early warning systems and the technological advances that we are having. So we are in a position to reduce the number of human lives in the times of disasters, and also disaster occurrences that is increasing, and economic losses that is associated with any kind of disaster, that is also increasing like anything. So we have to prepare ourselves economically also. Social values have to be changed, like rightly said in the inaugural session, that behavioral patterns, the way we behave to a disaster, our preparedness, that safety culture Professor Anil talked about, that has to be set up in our minds, and not only in our minds but also in our habits and our day-to-day behaviors with respect to disasters. India specifically, because of our unique geoclimatic conditions and high socio-economic vulnerabilities, we find ourselves in a situation that every year we are observing, like this Bihar Kosi floods we are observing on yearly basis, then droughts, landslides, and avalanches. It covers no less than 68% of our land area. Then earthquakes, tsunamis, and cyclones. Tsunamis and cyclones put together, they are a very, very regular phenomenon across the 7,500 kilometer long coastal line that India Peninsula is having. Out of that, 5,700 kilometers is very, very vulnerable to these kinds of events also. If we talk about the Global Climate Risk Index Report 2019, we were ranked 14th most vulnerable country due to extreme weather-related events, and all the disasters are closely related to the kind of economic destruction that we are observing. Even in this times of pandemic, the economical loss that we are observing, that is huge with respect to the GDP of our country, and not only in India but globally also. These are some of the figures. I won't go into the detail. These are some of the disasters that has happened, that has taken place in our country, and we have to prepare ourselves in such a fashion that we move toward disaster resilient society in times to come. Now, what is a disaster? The basic definitions, many definitions are there. One famous definition is from UNISDR. Three important aspects. It covers that it involves widespread human, material, economic, and environmental losses, and also one important aspect that it is beyond the coping capacity of the society. Another catching word from the definition of disaster from the UN says that it destroys the socio-economic fabric of our country, the population, geographical population that lives in. So put together many definitions. We have our own Disaster Management Act 2005. So put together three important aspects. It involves loss of human life, animal lives, then loss of economy, and also it is beyond the coping capacity of that population. Then only we term it as a disaster, because we have to seek help from the other parties as well. This is for the first time. I would like to mention here that India has accepted international support from outside countries in this times of pandemics. Otherwise, this was our kind of a frame of working that we stopped. We have not taken any kind of assistance, international assistance, be it in cash, be it in kind, from any country in the past disasters. But the pandemic is of such a huge nature that we have no other means, but we have to take help from other sources as well. So that is the definition of disaster. What we do with that? We prepare ourselves with respect to disasters by having a proper disaster management plan. The plan should not be there only in the books, in the chapters, looking very nice. That has to be implemented at the local level. It has to be customized with respect to the requirement of the local level, like requirement of a person sitting in northeast area of our country, or a person sitting in Goa, Maharashtra, or Kochi. So requirements might be different. It has to do with their lineage with respect to the culture they are having, the kind of economic facilities and development that they are observing, the technological advances. We talk about probably the technology is available in Delhi, Chennai, and metro cities, but that might not be available if we see any suburb area of Lucknow. You are sitting, many of the participants are sitting in Lucknow, but in some of the village closely associated to Lucknow, that they might not be having that kind of facility. So accordingly, plan has to be raised, and not only raised, but it has to be reviewed on yearly basis, and loopholes, shortcomings, that gap areas has to be found out, and accordingly plan has to be revised again and again. So that should be the motto. Now, causes, many causes, all of us are aware with respect to that. Environmental causes will be there, developmental causes. We are moving with a great speed with respect to changing the tag that our country is having, developing country. Very soon we want our GDP to grow in such a fashion like that people will start calling us as developed nation. But it has got consequences. We have to pay something like that. In 1905, when Mahatma Gandhi went to Europe, he gave a very important quotation. The kind of luxuries the European people are enjoying in the European countries, cities, they have to pay for it in times to come. So that is a very important lesson with respect to what development can provide us with respect to the catastrophe or the increasing trend of disaster that we are observing on day-to-day basis. Then there will be political motives, political issues, social unrest. In the pandemic also, oxygen नहीं मिल रहा है, हॉस्पिटल में बेड्स नहीं मिल रहे हैं, तो एक मॉब आ जाएगा. It will attack the medical professionals, it will attack the police people. So that kind of disaster can also be there. Then industrialization. the tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, the population is migrating from villages, suburb areas, block level areas, because they want their fellow generations to have better medical facilities, better education facilities, better luxuries, better opportunities in life to progress and grow. But that imbalance that it brings to the country. Right now, we are having 30 to 33% of urban population that contributes to nearly 67 to 68% of the GDP of the country. So, having said that, 68% population still remains in the rural areas. But by 2050, probably that urban population is going to cross our rural population. So that is again going to create lots of imbalances with respect to inviting lots of disasters and things like that in our tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 cities. Then disasters have got individual impacts, huge economic losses are associated with that. Then it has also the capacity to alter the natural environment. Loss of habitat will be there for many biodiversity species. It can be plants, it can be animals, and it also has the capacity to cause ecological stresses overall, the overall gambit of this biodiversity scenario. But we tend to forget one very important aspect. We probably may be very intelligent species on the earth, on this planet, but we are dependent on many of the species with respect to our interrelations with those species for our own existence. So we have to understand the importance of that and try to protect our environment and biodiversity in such a fashion that disasters doesn't have much say with respect to the kind of impact they provide upon the biodiversity. Then also a very important aspect of disaster, displacement of people. It brings several challenges to the population because they have to move to the new settlement. They become more poorer because of this shift. They have to find new jobs. They have to find new land to again go for their agricultural practices and things like that. It also increases the level of vulnerability. It also has got many multiplying effect with respect to the security, social security, economic security of the persons that are affected by the disaster. So these are the impacts. If you see this schematic diagram of a phase of a disaster, every disaster has a pre-disaster phase. We get warnings that yes, hazards are there. They might be converted into disasters. But if we are sound enough technologically, if we understand disasters, we will prepare ourselves with respect to disasters. So threats will be there, warning will be there. We have to understand those threats, those warnings. Like we are right now affected by this pandemic. So we should know that there will be many more viruses coming because of this climate change, sea level rise, glacial melting, lots of viruses that are protected in the sea, in the ice. They might be released into the local population. We will be in contact with those viruses, and probably there will be 10 pandemics, this kind of pandemics. So we have to prepare ourselves with respect to that. Then this disaster strikes, this impact factor. You can see this graph. This is coming down. This is emotional impact assessment. This graph is showing. So in the first few days, that heroic phase, that honeymoon phase, where we find community cohesion, where we find that the government, non-government, every stakeholders, even the impacted persons, like I am impacted by a disaster, but I will try to help my padosi, my neighbor in the times of disaster. So that honeymoon phase, we find, we try to tend to forget the losses that we have recently observed, and we try to build upon the community cohesion and things like that. But after this passing of this 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days syndrome, that time zone, that disillusionment phase comes, that what will happen to our future generation, where we will stand, how we will stand again socially and economically in times to come. But we being very strong species, we come to terms with working with the grief, and there will be trigger event, there will be anniversary reactions. We will again go down the kinds of agony, then a stress level that will increase. But again, we are being a strong human species. We go for reconstruction, recovery, and this whole phase of disasters that is shown in this schematic diagram. So we have to be prepared for disasters every time. When disasters is not there, we will prepare for the mitigation part of that, preparedness part of the disaster. And when disaster strikes, we go for the response phase. So these are the classification of hazards, like this meteorological disasters, geomorphic disasters, then floral, faunal, this current biological disaster that under this faunal category, this pandemic falls into that, because we have got this virus from some animal species like the bats and things like that. So these are the classification of hazards. Then if we see the equation of disaster risk, this is the basic multiplication, basic that interlinking of hazard and the kind of vulnerability that the population is facing. and also inversely proportional to the capacity. More the capacity, we are in a better position to understand the disaster risk and manage the impacts of a disaster. So these are basic definitions of what a hazard is, what a risk is, what a vulnerability is, and what is our capacity. So hazards are basically of four types. It can be natural, earthquake, droughts, floods, and things like that. Social, it can be like violence, war, armed conflicts. Like we are observing the fights that is going on between Philistine people and this Israeli people. That is social unrest. So that is a disaster itself. More than 250 lives and that has gone because of those rocket attacks and things like that. Then environmental degradation, we are not giving enough importance to our environment and nature. This has the capacity to decline the health and the education and other social services with respect to those kinds of impacts. Chamoli incident recently we observed that falls into this category. Then failing industrialized society, like one example I can quote, that first phase of pandemic, when we were in better position, we started opening industries. So this chemical industries, the Visakhapatnam, some places in Gujarat, some places in Chhattisgarh, and also in Uttar Pradesh, some chemical fires that took place because of our not adhering to the guidelines that is prescribed how to open an industry in a post-disaster scenario. So these kinds of types of hazards will always be there. We have to go for assessment of these hazards and accordingly plan ourselves with respect to how we have to face the disasters. Then capacity building, the kind of assets and services that we are having right now, it can be infrastructure, it can be equipment, it can be us, the human resource. That is very, very important aspect with respect to capacity building. So time and again, we have to go for trainings. This is also one online training that we are giving. You people have gathered here, you will learn something, you will go into the society back, and you will be in a better position, I am confident, to face any kind of disasters. So we have to organize such trainings, we have to go for such curriculums which brings some lessons, some important lessons, like Honorable Prime Minister rightly mentions in one of his famous 10-point agenda, that no opportunity should be lost with respect to learning lessons from any disaster that has passed. So पुराने जितने भी disasters हैं, उनमें से जो भी lessons हम earn करते हैं, we have to enhance our capacity with respect to that. So in future, if that kind of disaster impacts upon us, then we'll be in a better position to understand that disaster and lessen the impact of that particular disaster. So basically, this is the equation. Hazard event will always be there. In our surroundings, there will be situations, there will be vulnerability where hazards will be there. Our duty is not to turn these hazards into disasters. So we have to check our exposure with respect to that. We have to see the sensitivity of that particular area where we are living in and the kind of impact it might incur upon in times to come. So accordingly, put together all these things, we have to reduce the possibility of any disaster turning into any hazard turning into any disaster. So that is the basic motto. So vulnerability, that it can be physical vulnerability, it can be economic, it can be social, environmental, in physical. Like in Japan, most of the earthquakes that takes place over there. So what they do, वो लकड़ी का मकान बनाते हैं, ठीक है, wooden चीज ज्यादा यूज कर सकते हैं. But that wooden house is not good in areas where it is more prone to these hurricanes, more prone to floods. So जगह देख के आपको अपना इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चेंज करना पड़ेगा. तो वल्नरेबिलिटी अलग अलग जगह पे अलग अलग व्यक्तियों की अलग अलग होगी. इकोनॉमिक की यदि बात करें, everybody wants to live in earthquake resistant building, but can all the persons be provided these kinds of building? No. Economic barriers, जो लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड से अलग अलग व्यक्तियों के स्लम एरियाज क्यों होते हैं? बिकॉज द फैमिलीज विथ लो इनकम्स, दे विल ऑफन लिव इन हाई रिस्क एरियाज बिकॉज दे डोंट हैव wherewithal, they don't have means, they don't have money to buy earthquake resistant buildings. So economic vulnerability will always be there. Then social vulnerability, there will be sections of the society, like pregnant women, lactating women, elderly people, then our children, then handicapped people. So there will be sections of society will be needing more attention with respect to the common person in times of disaster or in a post-disaster scenario. Then environmental vulnerability will be there. People living in tropical areas will be more vulnerable to tropical cyclones and things like that. So these are some segments with respect to our vulnerability can be defined. So what we have to do, we have to go for risk identification, we have to go for risk reduction after identifying, then go for preparedness, then all kinds of financial protection should be there. We have to assess and reduce contingent liabilities in advance. वी शुड नो कि कितना वैक्सीन हमें अब ये लोगों को हमको देना है, कितना हॉस्पिटल बेड्स की हमें रिक्वायरमेंट आ सकती है इफ गॉड फॉरबिड द थर्ड वेव ऑफ पेंडेमिक कम्स as is being predicted by the IITs in the month of October, November. So we should be prepared with respect to that. So preparedness has to be there. After risk identification, then financial protection measures should be there. Then only resilient reconstruction phase can we think about in a disaster management cycle. So basically we have to improve our abilities to monitor and forecast hazards. हमारे आसपास हमको चौकन्ना रहना है. We have to be very cautious with respect to the kind of vulnerabilities we are living in. Then our exposure with respect to those vulnerabilities. Awareness इसलिए बोलते हैं, awareness generation के programs, why we go for that. At least people को ये हक तो है ये बताने का कि they are into these kinds of vulnerable zones. They have to prepare themselves with respect to protecting themselves in times of disasters. So put together, the greatest benefits can be achieved only by reducing the vulnerability to natural hazards. That is the basic equation. Then there are stages. Pre-disaster में हम कुछ अलग काम करते हैं, during disasters में हम response के ऊपर भी ज़्यादा ध्यान देते हैं. We have to ensure that the needs and provisions of victims which are living, which are not dead as yet, are met to alleviate and minimize suffering. And then post-disaster scenario, definitely we have to go for long-term planning with respect to reconstruction, rehabilitation, and providing those kinds of recovery which doesn't reproduce the original vulnerable conditions. मीनिंग ये है, यदि एक हाउस एक अर्थक्वेक में डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाता है तो रिकंस्ट्रक्शन फेज में इफ यू अगेन गो फॉर making that house, then that house has to be more strong. It has to be stronger than it used to be earlier, because now we are having more technological advancement, and also we have learned lessons from this disaster कि इतने impact का earthquake आएगा तो ये house stand नहीं कर सकता. So with those kinds of knowledge and technological advancement, we have to go for build back better in the Sendai framework of disaster risk reduction. This is very famous terminology, build back better. आपको reconstruct करना है सोसाइटी को, इकोनॉमिकली वाइबल बनाना है और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलप करना है, तो वो कैसा होना चाहिए, बेटर होना चाहिए पहले के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से. So that is the motto. So this is the end of my first half part of my presentation. So basically this is that cycle we have to take care of, and we have to be very, very cautious with respect to that. Prevention, mitigation, preparedness, these are very important. The lesson is we cannot stop natural disasters, but definitely we can arm ourselves with such kind of knowledge that many lives would not have to be lost if there was enough disaster preparedness. Now, second part, that institutional mechanism and things like that. Remember, 2015 was very important with respect to the kind of international that agencies, they came up with very important documents, very important segments, with very important directions, so to say, to the global community with respect to Sendai framework of disaster risk reduction, Paris Climate Change Agreement, and Sustainable Development Goals. So if we talk about the SFDRR, this was a transition from Hugo framework of disaster risk reduction to Sendai framework of disaster risk reduction. In the Hugo framework, that was prior to SFDRR, the priority number 4, addressing underlying factors of risk. We have to first understand and analyze the risk. That is also said by Honorable Prime Minister as his first agenda point with respect to 10-point agenda, that पहले disaster risk को तो समझो. Unless we understand the risk of a disaster, we cannot go for their planning and its management in times to come. So that priority 4 of Hugo framework of disaster risk reduction has become priority 1 in Sendai framework of disaster risk reduction. That is the understanding of disaster risk. So this is Hugo framework. I won't take much time into that. Now, Sendai is very, very important. Basically, we have to reduce 4 important aspects globally. That disaster mortality, लोगों की जान कम जाए, mortality को कम करना है, number of affected people, the population mass that is being affected by disaster, that has to be reduced drastically. Economic loss associated with any kind of disaster, that has to be reduced, and also damage to critical infrastructure and services disruption. Pandemics में suppose एक earthquake आ जाता है और critical infrastructure क्या होगा, एक hospital, ठीक, जहाँ पे आप कोविड केयर कैंप्स लगाते हैं, कोविड हॉस्पिटल लगाते हैं, या कोविड डेडिकेटेड हॉस्पिटल्स बनाते हैं, उसको 3 टायर्स में जो बनाते हैं. सपोज हॉस्पिटल ही कोलैप्स हो गया तो उसे बचाने की जरूरत है, ये सेंडाई फ्रेमवर्क कहता है. Or drastically we have to enhance the number of countries with national and local DRR strategies by 2020, but definitely because of pandemic, this time frame has to be enhanced because most of the countries are not in a position to cover this goal. The international cooperation, that is very, very important for the developing country, because technology will not be there. So developed countries has to come forward in bhaichara and provide all kinds of technology that they are having. There is no need for technology transfer, but at least technology can be provided to the developing country with less this charge of money, or with no money, like this benevolent practices. Then also availability and access to early warning systems and DRR information. This is very important. Suppose SAARC region की यदि हम बात करें, so India is kind of a wealthy nation if compared to SAARC countries. So we have satellite technologies, mein we are very advanced. So this meteorological satellite that is up there, inset and things like that. So kind of information that we are having from these satellites, this can be given without charging any cost to Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and other countries of SAARC region, because they are not in a position to develop this kind of technology for say next 50 years. But we have to save lives globally, not only the people of India. And because of this this motto only, this vaccine doses were provided to our neighboring countries where these vaccine doses were required. So this is kind of global society we are living in. We have to think not only of our citizens, our country citizens, but also the global citizens with respect to disasters. So that is very important. Then sustainable development goals. Many goals are there. 17 goals. Out of 17 goals, 11 goals are directly related to disaster risk reduction. I won't go into much detail with respect to that. Goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, and then 11, 13, 14, and 15. They are closely related to disaster risk reduction. Kindly go through all these goals, and they are also in sync with sustainable development, SFDRR, and also Paris Climate Change Agreement as well. Now, as far as our country is concerned, this is the schematic diagram of the kind of a structure that we already have. At the central level, we have National Disaster Management Authority. We have National Executive Committee that supports NDMA with respect to making plan, monitoring, implementation of plan, and things like that. At a state level, we have SDMAs, we have DDMAs, and local bodies. Then we also take help from the scientific and technical institutions, academic institutions, and disaster management processes and management. Then also take help from the private sector, corporate sector, professional bodies, NGOs as well. And at the central level, again, at the top notch, top echelon, we have Cabinet Committee on Security. We have our own organization, National Institute of Disaster Management. We are into imparting training and bringing up capacity development with respect to disaster risk management. Then also we have Cabinet Committee on Management of Natural Calamities. So put together, we have a balanced scenario with regard to what should be the ideal mechanism of disaster risk management as far as the country is concerned. So there are many ministries, nodal ministries, with respect to several different kinds of disasters. This flood and tsunami, cyclone, earthquake, they are associated with our main ministry, Ministry of Home Affairs. Then Ministry of Health and Family Welfare associated with biological disasters. And that is why during this pandemic, because this is a biological disaster, you are finding all guidelines, instructions being given by Ministry of Health, but not much from Ministry of Home Affairs. Because of these responsibilities already entrusted upon specific ministries and departments with respect to specific disasters. Now, in 2005, there was a paradigm shift with respect to two important disasters: 1999 Odisha earthquake, Odisha supercyclone, and 2001 Bhuj earthquake that took place in Gujarat. Then we started giving importance not only to the response section of a disaster management cycle, but also for the mitigation part, for preparedness part, for reduction part, and also for going for preparedness part. So this paradigm, under this paradigm shift, we brought our Disaster Management Act 2005, and that is a very important act, and that is in practice, and this is also being used in the times of pandemic. So this act was enacted 23rd of December 2005. Lots of promulgations and lots of establishment of lots of organizations with respect to NDMA, NDRF, SDMA, DDMA, NIDM, and things like that. So this is available in NDMA and NIDM website. You can go through, you should study rather what a Disaster Management Act is. How it is being used, one example I wanted to quote, in April 2021 only, when across the India we had this shortage of oxygen. So Ministry of Home Affairs, under the, DM Act is under the aegis of the Ministry of Home Affairs. So MHA invoked Disaster Management Act for oxygen supply. It directed all the states not to stop any medical oxygen carrying vehicle while it is crossing their state or crossing their district. All the DMs, all the DCs, SSPs, SPs, and DCPs will be personally liable. The courts have mentioned Even the MHA order says like that. They will be personally liable if any kind of violation with respect to these directions are there. No authority shall attach oxygen carrying vehicles anywhere. It has to be given free passage. No restriction should be there on oxygen manufacturers, suppliers to limit the oxygen supplies only to that state. सपोज महाराष्ट्र में कोई ऑक्सीजन सप्लायर है, मैन्युफैक्चरर है, तो उसके ऊपर कोई बंधन नहीं है कि वो केवल महाराष्ट्र को ही ऑक्सीजन सप्लाई करेगा. It has to supply to anybody needing in our country. Then there will be free movement of vehicles. There will be supply of oxygen for industrial purposes. It has been stopped from April 22, unless except there are some important industries where this cannot be stopped. Then states and UTs have also been given proper instruction how to follow these guidelines and how they have to manage the free and fair supply of oxygen across the nation. Then after this 2005, 2009, we had our National Policy on Disaster Management, very important document that gives directions rather in such a fashion, principles of disaster risk management, how the government should process, behave, and prepare for any kinds of disaster in times to come. This is a very important aspect. This is also available over there. Now, as per the Disaster Management Act 2005, it is envisaged that all the government machinery, they should be having their own plan. So accordingly, our country should also have one disaster management plan. So in 2016, Honorable Prime Minister launched this NDMP, National Disaster Management Plan 2016. So this is in clear sync with three important global documents I mentioned in my previous slides, that is Sendai Framework of Disaster Risk Reduction, SDGs is and then this Paris Climate Change Agreement. And as is mandated that every year this has to be reviewed. So unfortunately, this could not be reviewed on the subsequent 2 years, but 2019, we reviewed NDMP and three important new chapters were connected or given to this NDMP in the revised NDMP. One is climate change risk management has been included as the sixth thematic area for disaster risk management in the revised NDMP 2019. New chapter on social inclusion addresses special considerations and suggests measures considering gender-based vulnerability, conditions on SC community, means downtrodden society, part of our society, or the vulnerable portion of our society that has been given a specific mention in the new chapter in the revised NDMP 2019. Also, last but not the least, to synchronize NDMP with the post-2015 important international agreement, the three agreements I mentioned. 2030 has been envisaged as the ending year for the long-term actions. Then 2022, 27, and 30, they have been given timeline for the short-term, medium-term range, and long-term planning with respect to how we are going to fulfill our global promises with respect to three important documents of SFDRR, SDG, and Paris Climate Change Agreement. So also in 2016, our Honorable Prime Minister came up with 10-point agenda in the famous that Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. I won't go much details into that, but if you remember this point number 1, point number 4, point number 8 are closely related with the program that we are right now we are having with SRMU. So this details, I mean, those specific points of Honorable Prime Minister's 10-point agenda. So this is also very important. It gives kind of a Bible for our country, how we should move for disaster risk management in our country. So as I mentioned, to help the NDMA, there is a National Executive Committee. Our Honorable Home Secretary of Government of India is ex-office chairman. There will be secretaries of many important ministries and departments. They will be member of this NEC, and it basically prepares that NDMP, that plan, and it is to be approved by NDMA. Then we have NDMA, then Honorable Prime Minister is the chairman. There can be maximum 9 members. Right now, if I am not forgetting, there are 4 members of NDMA. Then NEC helps NDMA. It lays down policies, plans, guidelines for disaster management. And as NEC prepares an NDMP, it is to be approved by NDMA. That is the main role of NDMA. It monitors the implementation of disaster management across the country. That is the main job of NDMA. Then we have similarly SDMA for states, where Chief Minister heads the SDMA. Then we have DDMA, where the district collector or district magistrate heads the that authority, DDMA. DDMA has a specific roles, Like yesterday only, Honorable Prime Minister in his talk to the collectors, he said, you are field commanders with respect to the handling pandemics. So there is important role of DDMS with respect to handling any kind of disaster. They are responsible for planning, coordination, and implementation of disaster management, and to take such measures for disaster management that is required, that is provided as per the guidelines. They also has the power to, like Professor Chandran Ghosh was talking about, earthquake resistant buildings. So they have also power to check any colony, any area of the district geographical area, whether this is coping, this has that coping mechanism with respect to earthquake resistant guidelines or not. So many, powers that has been interested upon TDMA. Then we have our own NIDM. We are basically, we have a vision to play the role of a premier institute of capacity building as far as DRM is concerned. We have many nodal responsibilities of human resource development, capacity building, training, research, documentation, and policy advocacy, etc. And also we go for promotion of culture of prevention across our talks, webinars, and 3-day or 5-day programs. Very soon after this COVID is down, we will go for face-to-face training programs across the country. So this is about us. Then this is NDRF. NDRF, you all know, this is the only specialized force that any country has constituted for the purpose of a specialized response in times of threatening disaster situation or disaster under the Disaster Management Act. So the schematic diagram of the 12 battalions of NDRF that is posted across the portions of nation, so that they can deal with disaster kind of situations. 2 additional battalions have come up. They are experts in the areas of CBRN, that is biological, chemical, and radiological and nuclear kind of disasters. So specific 2 battalions are there of NDRF, which are capable of handling those kinds of situations as well. So this is about the National Disaster Response Fund. So nomenclature are similar, that is force, this is fund. So recently the 15th Finance Commission, that is promulgated under Article 280 of our Indian Constitution. So, and working since April of 2020, recently it has come up to promote local level mitigation activities, has come up with mitigation funds that has been set up at both national and state level in the form of mitigation funds. And Commission recommended creation of funds for disaster mitigation along with disaster response also. Earlier, the funds that we had that had to do with response kind of activities, but right now 20% means har 100 rupees mein se 20 rupees will be provided for mitigation things. So this is the new concept that government India has come up. So to reduce the impacts of any disaster, for looming disaster, any forthcoming disaster, we can go for mitigation measures, and for that 20 rupees out of every 100 rupees that is provided by the central and state government, that can be utilized for mitigation activities and purposes. So last few slides, the disasters threaten development just as development creates disasters. So disasters are basically indicators of our developmental failures. So we could not follow the guidelines, we could not follow the scientific developmental that issues that were associated with creating any kind of infrastructure, and that is why we have to face the disasters. And also they are measures of sustainability of the development also. So hazard, vulnerability, exposure are very influenced with respect to the number of risk drivers. It can be poverty, it can be inequality, it can be badly planned and managed urban and regional developmental plans. It can be climate change also. This is a new phenomenon that we are observing in the 21st century. Increasing trend of climate change, climatic crisis event that we're observing. Then environmental degradation because of our greeds. We are entering into the forest areas because we want more land, as was told by Professor Anil in the inaugural session. So we have to reduce these kind of activities that is degrading environment, that is degrading biodiversity. And we have to go for resilience, that is the ability of communities, societies, and systems to resist, absorb, accommodate, recover from disasters, and also improve our well-being. That build back better is very important aspects. हमें सिचुएशंस को वैसे ही बना के नहीं देना है जैसे वो पहले थी, क्योंकि डिजास्टर तो तब आ ही गया था, तो वो डिजास्टर को विथ स्टैंड नहीं कर सका. So that is why we have to build back better. We have to provide new kinds of infrastructure developments that withstands any kinds of looming disasters. We have to also need to understand society's capacity to protect itself from disasters and continuously work upon that, so that, like somebody was asking in the chat box, that mock drills can help. Yes, definitely. Mock drills से आपको किसी आने वाले disasters के बारे में वो जो डर अंदर का होता है वो खत्म कर देता है. The more number of mock drills you do, and also in every new mock drill, you try to find the gap areas on the previous mock drill, and you try to redefine and rework upon that so that your capacity is more enhanced. लेकिन ये भी याद रखिए कि every new disaster is a new disaster. It will not be the replica of the past disaster. So it will come up with few new kinds of virtues with new qualities that we have to face. So accordingly, some unknown things we have to prepare ourselves for. ये नहीं बोलना है कि 10,000 बेड की व्यवस्था कर देने से पेंडेमिक का हम व्यवस्था कर लेंगे. हमारे पास कुछ अननोन, मतलब हो सकता है वो 12,000 चला जाए. So accordingly we have to prepare ourselves. So that is very important aspect in disaster risk management. So this is a schematic diagram. Like incident takes place in the right hand side, you can see in this diagram. Then we go for response through our integrated response mechanism in accordance with strategic priorities. Then we go for recovery. It comes up with gelled with restored activities, restoration activities, then community capacity building, involving community also in the planning processes and implementation processes. Then to reduce the risk, we go for a prevention mechanism. And when we know that disaster is round the corner, we go for preparedness through our operational readiness and also coordinated approach. Departments and divisions should not work in isolation. They should work in synergy and coordination with each other. But having said that, in this disaster management cycle, what we have to take notice of that all our activities should be environmentally scanned, whether any activity is hurting any aspect of environment or not. If it is hurting, that we have to stop that activity. Then leadership engagement. There should not be 1 or 2 or 3 leaders only. There should be chain of leaders. There should be plan B for everything. If somebody dies, then somebody has to be there to take the leadership challenges also. Then our plan should be all hazard specific. It should not be associated with earthquake आएगा तो देख लूंगा, pandemic आएगा तो नहीं देख लूंगा, है ना? ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. Then all the stakeholders, they should go for training, they should go for mock drills, exercise, and our capability improvement process should be on. It should not be stopped anytime. And all the times you have to go and check for your performance assessment, where you are doing things right or not. And if you're not doing right things, then you have to mend your ways. So last but not the least, this is a slide I always share with each and everybody. Since 1971, organization is talking about this Earth Overshoot Day. It talks about how we are utilizing our natural resources. So if you compare the timeline of 1970 to 2018 and 19 and things like that, the time zone has been reduced from December to November, November to October, October to September, and now 2018 it fell upon August 1st. It means on 2018, on August 1st, we, the human beings, we exploited all the natural resources that Mother Earth had the power to regenerate in that particular year. Means उस साल जितना natural resources था, हमने अगस्त 1 में ही खत्म कर दिया. So how we are alive? We are utilizing the fixed deposits, the natural resources that we should not exploit, that should be kept for rainy days, for emergency days. But we are not giving importance to that. So right now we need 1.75 Earth to live. And one UN report says that by 2080, this population that is presently 7.32 billion or something like that, this is going to reach 10.84 billion. So from where we are going to provide all kinds of natural resources and facilities to this overwhelming population, and probably by that time we would be needing 3 Earths to live. So that is not possible to provide in any condition. So we have to change our behavior. We have to change, we have to define what should be development for us. We should not encroach into forest areas. We should conserve the environment. We should bare minimum needs. Pandemic ने हमें एक बहुत अच्छा लेसन सिखाया कि हम बहुत कम में अपना गुजारा करने लगे हैं. ठीक है, हम अपने घरों में रह के वर्क फ्रॉम होम भी कर रहे हैं. सो बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कम यूज हो रहा है, खाने पीने के सामान कम यूज हो रहे हैं, मेडिकल जो लोड है, नॉन पैंडेमिक लोड जो है, वो हम हॉस्पिटल जाने से घबरा रहे हैं. मतलब पहले आसानी से चले जाते थे, आजकल नहीं जाते हैं. सो थिंग्स लाइक दैट. सो वी हैव टू चेंज अवर बिहेवियर सो दैट we will be in tune with the kind of reproductive power of Earth and our that greed or need. So these are my slides. 2 important messages. If you fail to prepare, basically you are preparing to fail, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And in Sanskrit, this is said that nahi kaschit vijanate kim kasya bhavishyati atah shvah karniyani kuryadya buddhimani. It means this is about planning. One never knows what will happen to tomorrow. So therefore, wise men should do tomorrow's task today itself. आज हमें तैयारी करनी है कि थर्ड वेव ऑफ पेंडेमिक यदि आता है तो व्हाट वी शुड डू, वी शुड prepare ourselves with respect to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an informative session. You have talked a lot about the disaster management, the causes, the impact, the preparedness, the various government committees, rules, regulations, policies. I think we all have got so much insight about the disaster management and the various authorities and functionaries which are being there in our country, and various trends which were there in disaster management. It was very well presented, very informative. Thank you so much, sir. And now we will have the question and answer round. I request all the audience to please raise your hands so that we can have the question answer round. Yes, SP, some SP sir has raised his hand for the question. You may unmute yourself and ask the question, sir. Ms. Ramsha Khan, ma'am. Ali Ahmed, sir. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Yes, Dr. Yash Kumar is also there. There are lots of hands raised, but I guess.
And we can ask them to maybe send their queries on in chat box, so
yes,
we can handle them.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sure. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Okay. So.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Can I audible?
Yes, yes, Dr. Yash Kumar.
Dr.
Please
Yash.
ask.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. My question is there. अनिल अमित सर है वहाँ पे?
हाँ yes. बोले बोलिए सर, बोलिए आप।
I'm here.
Yes, sir. So nowadays, always our government are planning
Hello,
from
thank
national.
you for calling DAL. My name is Deepti. How may I help you?
Just
Hello.
a sec, ma'am. Let the
Doing fine, sir.
Yes,
Can you
yes,
please
sir.
give me the service tag?
Can I audible?
हाँ, please, Yash, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So now our
Just a minute.
policy are.
Yes, sir. Please unmute yourself. You are muted, as I have muted all so that no disturbances come.
यश जी पूछिए, अनम्यूट कर लीजिएगा अपने आप को।
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. I think.
Hello. Can
yes,
I audible?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Now all the policy and all the framework, Shanghai framework, Hyogo protocol to Shanghai framework are all the are on the policy laid down on the paper.
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Please continue, sir. Please continue.
Someone is distorting the voice in between.
Right.
Yes, sir. So, sir, why this policy are not proper executed on the from local district level? What are the hurdles for execution of this policy?
What are the hurdles with respect to implementation of global policies or our own policies?
First, our own policy.
Okay.
First, our own policy.
As I mentioned, Dr. Yash, that our national policy with respect to beat our policy, beat our plan, things like that. See, the thing is, from Indian perspective, first thing is every year it has to be reviewed. That is first thing.
Yes, sir.
क्योंकि आज से 1 साल पहले जो चीज लिखा हुआ है, आज सिचुएशन चेंज हो चुका है। ठीक, सुन लीजिए पहले। सेकंड थिंग इज, इस बीच में हो सकता है that place, geographical place that you are living in, and you are putting this question from that place, there might be 3 or 4 kinds of disaster already taken place in the last year.
Okay.
So first thing is review. if they are this is peace time, there should be no disaster. If there is disaster, after every disaster there will be new lessons learned. So accordingly, this plan and policy should be reviewed. These are two aspects. Now, why they are not being implemented? See, who is government, or who is implementer, or who is the authority? Us, me sitting here, Dr. Yash. He will become some officer, or he might be an officer somewhere right now. So we are implementers. So implementers, like rightly mentioned by Professor Gupta, charity begins at home. See.
Yes, sir.
So if I am given some kinds of responsibility with respect to incident response system associated with any disaster management plan, then I should be doing my role properly, na?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
if we start doing our roles properly, so probably we will be seeing better implementation. That's part number one. Part number two. One report says that we are 38 billion population, and by 2030 we were supposed to cross China as the first hugely populated nation. But new report says by 2024 only we are going to cross China.
Yes.
Now, who is responsible? Somebody else from other countries not coming into our country and increasing the population. We are only responsible. Yes, so sir. Here population is increasing like anything. You may remember the last slide I mentioned, 1.75 Earth we are needing right now.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So if we are going to cross China, and if that report is true that by 2080, 10.84 billion population will be there. So no country, forget about India, no country. See, even in this pandemic, America failed in the times of the first wave. Lots of people died, despite the fact that they are having the best of the hospital facilities and medical facilities. So the kind of the intensity of disaster, the increasing frequency of disaster is such vis-a-vis the kind of population, vulnerable population rather. There will be elderly people, there will be lactating or women, pregnant women will be there, children will be there. Then most of the people will be uneducated. Shortest example आपको देता हूँ. Sorry if I am making it long. During the time of pandemic, we are doing digital online education. Okay?
Okay, sir.
पेपर में बोलना आसान है कि डिजिटल ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन कर दीजिए. आप सर्वे करके देखिए, वो बच्चे जो 8th 9th 10th 11th में पढ़ते हैं, क्या सबके पास लैपटॉप है? सबके पास स्मार्टफोन्स हैं? और यदि आपने खरीद भी लिया, तो क्या वहाँ इंटरनेट फैसिलिटी है? तो डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट में एक लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी एक टर्म बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी मतलब फैसिलिटीज आपके पास है, कागज में हर चीज अच्छी दिख रही है, लेकिन आपने क्या वो लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी तक उसको पहुंचा पाए. सो देखिए, ये मैं छोटे छोटे हर्डल्स बता रहा हूँ. इसका मतलब डिमोटिवेटेड होने की जरूरत नहीं है. द रोल्स एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज दैट एन इंडिविजुअल इज गिवन, he should find himself very very lucky कि out of 138 billion people in our country, I am given this responsibility and 110% I will give myself into that, not 100. थोड़ा सा एक्स्ट्रा करना पड़ेगा. तो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन लेवल पे केवल हमारी कंट्री में नहीं, सारे कंट्रीज में भी प्रॉब्लम्स आते हैं, जगह को देख के, सोसाइटी को देख के, फैसिलिटीज को देख के. लेकिन उससे घबराना नहीं है. कोशिश ये करना है कि आज यदि 19 तारीख है, 21 तारीख को हमारी जो पोजीशन होगी 21 मई को, वो इससे बेटर होगी.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for providing. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Yash, for asking this question. As now we are getting late for the session, we are already 1 hour late, more than 1 hour late for the event. We can't take more questions, but the questions which are posted on the chat box are kept in record, and we will revert you on email with the answers. And moving ahead with, let us conclude this event. Today's session, today's event, with for concluding remarks, for concluding the session, we have with us Dr. Mohit Verma, sir, Dean, Institute of Management, Commerce and Economics, Sri Ram Sarup Memorial University. May I request Ms. Janvi to please introduce sir, so that we can have the sir. Yes, Janvi, please. Janvi, are you there? Janvi, may we have you? Okay, hello? I think Janvi is not there. Professor Mohit Verma, Dean Faculty.
There, but unmuted, I think so.
So you are audible, sir.
Shall I start?
Sir,
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. So Jani is facing some network issue.
sir,
Okay.
I am there to introduce you. Currently working as Professor and Dean Management, Faculty of Management, Institute of Management, Commerce and Economics, SRMU Barabanki, Lucknow, having a vast experience in academia as well as in corporate with more than 26 years of experience, out of which more than 21 years of academics and higher education in teaching, training, research, and academic administration, and 5 years of corporate experience in marketing sales. We also have a rich international academic exposure in a couple of overseas assignments in Dubai of more than 6 years. Before joining SRMU, he had worked with leading and renowned institutions like Institute of Productivity and Management, Lucknow, IMT Business School, Dubai, and American University, Dubai. He has done post-graduation in business administration with a specialization in marketing and holds a PhD degree from University of Lucknow. Please, sir, may we have you?
Okay, I'm audible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, one and all. Now we are at the concluding session of the 3 days eFDP and training program on disaster risk reduction and disaster management, jointly organized by NIDM and SRMU. To start with, I will say, all is well that ends well. Shri Ashish Pandaji has started with the opening remarks, and he has rightly mentioned with regard to the second wave of pandemic and our preparedness for it in a short period of time and its hazardous effects. He has also mentioned about with regard to the companies to start working on and operating in a manner so that there should not be any adverse effect on the environment to avoid such disasters in days to come. With regard to the very lucid presentation, Ashish sir, it was a very fantastic and very informative session you have given just now. You started with the very right quote and really impressed me a lot. We don't inherit the land from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So we have to take care of it so that once we leave, definitely our children can prosper in that land. You have talked about the list of list of disasters with regard to the 21st century in the 21 years only. You also mentioned various trends in occurrence and the victimizations which has happened, and our focus is on reduction of victimization. You also mentioned the very unique characteristic of our country geoclimatic conditions with a high socioeconomic vulnerabilities which really being affected because of the calamities. You also rightly mentioned the various roles which are being played by the UN Office of Disaster Risk Reduction. At the end, you also come out with a list of details with regard to the capacity building and disaster risk management. You throw a good light on the stages of disaster management and new policy paradigm. You discussed about, and definitely this would be a good information with regard to the Disaster Management Act 2005 and NDMP 2019 and the revised one. And someone has raised the question with regard to the importance of mock drill, which has been very rightly explained by you, sir. We are so much thankful to you for giving a very informative and very lucid presentation. And I'm sure those who are connected, the students, faculty members, research scholars, and many more throughout the India will definitely get good takeaways out of these informations. Now I'm going back and start with Dr. Anushri Singh, the moderator of the day. She started and set the stage for the today's session, and by mentioning that we cannot avoid disaster, but we can arm ourselves to face the disaster and try to reduce the destruction as much as possible. Further to that, Professor Anil Gupta sir has started his presentation as far as the welcome address is concerned, and he started with the Taute cyclone and COVID pandemic disaster which we are facing as of now. And he mentioned that we have to have a think out of box and find out the ways and means to reduce or the reduction as far as the which are happening because of these such disasters. He also emphasized on the three aspects: health, safety, environment. And I'm really impressed by the new term he has coined today, or rather I have come across with that sick building syndrome. Definitely we should look into these aspects and try to overcome with these and take care of our near and dear ones and family members. In the inaugural address by our Honorable Pro VC Sir, he has put emphasis on preparedness of our country during COVID-1 and emphasis on the COVID second wave, and the way the things are going on in our country. Trying hard, government is trying hard to be ready with the if the third wave comes across. In the keynote address by our Honorable VC Sir, Professor A.K. Singh Sarji, he has emphasized on preventive action and corrective action and throw a light on the climate change. The first speaker of today's session, Professor Chandan Ghosh, has given a very insightful deliberation, and he emphasized more on IoT and ICT. He talked about the term mutual core, which is a device which can be used. I was just thinking of that whatever we have seen, that there are the buildings where we commonly see that there are smoke detectors. So in days to come, probably these devices would be ready to fix and will definitely help us in for the purpose of which these devices are being used on the ICT based. He emphasized on the LoRa technology, which has been a new, for many of us, it would be a new thing which we can definitely learn upon. And in the second session by Ms. Asha Sharma, I mean, his starting with a comparison with a Bhagwan, I'm really, appreciate by the means of she has emphasized on the Bhumi, Gagan, Vayu, and a Neer. And she emphasized on that although media is a profession, but the media person should look into for the social cause. They should not look into they should be always be unbiased, and this is what we being taught in the ethics of journalism. I think today's sessions have been very thought provoking. Lot many inputs are being and the takeaways are being given by all these speakers. I'm sorry I missed Dr. Amit. He has really settled down the stage for today's day and for the remaining 2 days session by being a SRMU organizer coordinator, and explain the various topics as far as to be covered throughout the 3 days session. And at the last, I'm just concluding that thanks a lot for all the speakers for your very insightful and word of wisdoms, and I'm sure all the participants will definitely get a lot of inputs out of these, and these will give them very thought-provoking ideas. And in days to come, 2 days more days which are there, and the new topics with the new good speakers which are there, definitely this will end with a good training program and faculty development program. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Dr. Anushri.
Thank you so much, sir, for concluding today's event. I am sure we all have, as said by sir, we all have learned so much things. We all have had so much takeaway, so much insights from today's sessions. And with this, today we are at the end of the session, and I hope you all have gained a lot. And we will meet tomorrow again at 10:30 and we will try our best to keep the pace of time so that we will not run late. We don't run late tomorrow. And this is all. Thank you. It was very. I feel very privileged to be a part of this program. It's been a pleasure being with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. We will again meet tomorrow with the same link. The link will be same for tomorrow's event at 10:30 sharp. We will have 3 sessions again tomorrow with very good eminent speakers.
अच्छा अमित जी,
Yes sir.
आप शायद कुछ फोटोग्राफ लेना चाहेंगे सारे ऑडियंस का, वो रिपोर्ट में आपके काम आएगा, यदि अभी लेना है या फिर बाकी डेज में लेना है, जैसे आप डिसाइड कर लीजिए, so that we can request the people here to अच्छा taken, okay, ठीक, thank you,
yes sir,
thank you. So we meet 10:30 sharp tomorrow morning.
Yes sir.
Okay,
yes,
God bless, thank you, keep safe.
So much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye sir,
Thank you,
bye
sir.
sir, please, thank you sir.
yes sir, thank you ma'am.